Fill her up.
You're listening to the Gas Digital Network.
With Robb Flynn.
What up? What up? What up? Podcast party people. How you doing? How you living? Look at this hair. Oh my gosh, my hair is so curly today. It's fucking pouring rain. Took the dogs out on a rainy walk, and this is what happens. Turns into this shit. The fuck, man. And I've got a nose hair that is driving me crazy. I plucked my nose today. I think I got to take the nose trimmer. This side, oh my God, it's driving me nuts. Fucking nuts. I pulled out a big one. I thought it was it. And you can take the tweezers. You can rip them out. I thought it was it. I thought it was it, but I guess I missed it. I must have missed it. So I don't know. Now I guess now I got to dig up there, dig up some more shit around. I got to take the fucking electric thing. You know, you take the nose trimmer. That thing's good to a point. Not great, but good to a point. You still got to get up there with the tweezers and find that one, get it out. It's always my right side. My right side always. My eyebrow hairs get super long on my right side. My beard gets super long on my right side, and then this side, nothing. Not too bad at all. In fact, I think I've got my right side is almost always at some point during the day I get a booger there on my right nostril. No idea why. You know, I actually have an idea why, and it probably doesn't even make sense because this is so long ago. But about 10 years ago, it was right after the Locust album, I came back from mastering the record. We were on the tour, on the Mayhem tour, and I'd been hanging out with a buddy of mine, Chad, who was on that tour with us. And we did I had just gotten back from mastering the record on a day off. I came back, played the show. I was exhausted. I was like, fucking, all right. But as the record was done, we're like, it's done. It's over. We did it. Yay. Woo. We partied. We partied. Parties when you do some extra things that may go up your nose occasionally. And so I was doing things that go up my nose. And then I feel like I did too much of them. And what happened, I feel like, is a piece of cocaine went into my, like, sometimes when you don't chop it up enough and it's like a big rock, I feel like it got stuck in one of my nostrils, and then it like burned a hole through part of my nasal skin, like that became a scar later on. And now all these years later is just a permanent booger maker. Yeah. Sounds crazy, I know. But I feel like because of some cocaine that I did 10 years ago, and a chunk of it that got stuck up there, now I've got some permanent boogers. I don't know. It sounds, as I say it out loud, it sounds completely stupid. But I think it's true. I didn't have this, or maybe it's just getting old. Maybe it's just getting old. That, for some reason, you get old, you hit a certain age, boom, booger every day. Not sick, not eating dairy, nothing, just booger every day. You know, it's like your balls get saggy, start dipping into the toilet bowl. Your butt hair starts growing. All your hair just randomly, not the hair that you want to grow, not the hair on your head, but like your eyebrow hair starts growing extra long. Your eyelash hair starts falling out. Your ear hair starts growing long. Butt hairs, yeah. Just wait, motherfuckers. Wait till you get my age. You're going to be, I've never even thought about my butt hairs, my butthole hairs, ever. Decades went by. I didn't even think about my butt hairs. Wipe my butt. I knew I had some hairs down there. Now, it's like every time I wipe my fucking butt, toilet paper will get all caught on it, and then it's like and then they're fucking extra long. Like I can feel them now when I take a shower, like when I wash around my butt. I don't actually stick my hand in my butt crack, but they're so long, I can feel them outside my butt crack. The fuck? No one wants. There's no need for that. Why? Why people who made humans, or whoever made humans, or why evolution? We don't need butt hairs to grow longer. No need. Does not help anything or anybody in evolution. It's not like we're old now. Oh, you need to have longer butt hairs to help you with. But no, I need shorter butt hairs. I don't take them all away. I don't even find any reason to have butt hairs. Why? Why butthole hairs? Don't need them longer. Just saying. Whoever's in charge of that shit on the next generation as we evolve as human beings, just, make the opposite. They disappear as you get older. Yeah. That's my hypothesis for the day. Yes, rant over. What do I got here for you? I've got some notes that I took. Notes, podcast topics. It was just Halloween the other day. Had a Halloween happy hour. It was quite a hit, actually. Every Friday. If you didn't know, every Friday on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook, we live stream a show. Jared and I, and we did all cover song set this time around. It was banger. Opened with Halloween by the Misfits. And then went right into Dead Skin Mask. Because you got to go right into Dead Skin Mask. Come on, perfect Halloween song. Ultimate Halloween song. Did some Slayer. We did some, what else did we do? We did some Typo Negative. We did Metallica, Things That Should Not Be, which might not seem very Halloweenish, but Things That Should Not Be is an H.P. Lovecraft poem that Metallica incorporated into one of their songs. So, hey, H.P. Lovecraft, bro. Goth, Halloween. Let's see. And then we did we did The Dagger off of Roadrunner United, which made no sense. And then we did End of Heartache by Killswitch Engage, which also made even less sense. But we just practiced them and they sounded great. So we're like, fuck it. These songs sound killer. So let's do it. And then we did a couple of things. The middle got kind of the 3/4 mark. We had these beers. This guy, there's a brewery called Prism Brewing, and he made a beer called 10 Ton Hammer because it's 10% triple IPA, and he sent us some, and Jared and I started drinking those. Jesus Christ, by the 3/4 mark of the show, both of us were fucking getting hammered. I was like, woo. Anyway, then we went into Still Loving You, spontaneously jammed Scorpion, Still Loving You, which was a train wreck because I don't know what happened with the drum track, but it completely fell apart. And then we did Thriller by Michael Jackson, and that was super fun, but Jared forgot all the lyrics. So then I sang the second verse, and then it was fun. It was fun after that. And then we closed with Slayer. More Slayer. Post-mortem into Rain and Blood. Jared was a pregnant princess. That's what we were calling him, the pregnant princess. Because he didn't have any boobs, but he had his beer belly. It was just no boobs at all. I was making fun of him when he walked in. I was like, if you were a stripper, you wouldn't be making a lot of money. You wouldn't be making a lot of money in the strip club. No one would be making it rain on you right now. No, you've got 2 mosquito bites for boobs. Why no boobs? Just stuff a bra with socks. Very easy to do. He didn't, though. When I dress up like a woman on Halloween, let me tell you, I got big old titties. Big old titties. I want the biggest they can. Give me a double D bra, stuff that shit with some paper towels and a socks, and yeah. It's awesome. It's the best part of dressing up as a woman. I was like, dude, you missed out. You missed out on the best part of dressing up like a woman. Although he did look rather good. He had kind of a princess outfit, and he had a little, I forget what it's called, but he had like a little chain thing across the top of his head, and it went over his forehead. Many of the men were very attracted to Jared, even with that big old handlebar mustache. Somebody said he looked like Stevie Nicks with a handlebar mustache. It was too funny. And I was the Joker. I was the Dark Knight Joker, just to be clear. I was the dark. Although I went out trick-or-treating with my kids, and everybody thought I was Beetlejuice. I was like, Beetlejuice? No, bro. Dark Knight Joker. Like, Beetlejuice wears stripes, doesn't he? I don't think he wears a purple jacket and a green vest, and I don't know, whatever. It's like, associate. Every time I put a picture up on Instagram, I'm like, oh, you look like Mike Portnoy. I'm like, no, I don't. I look like Robb Flynn, okay? Oh, you dress as the Joker. Oh, you look like Beetlejuice. No, I look like the Joker. Anyway, it was fun. It was a fun Halloween, I got to say. We had the happy hour, so I dressed up then. Then Saturday night, we went out and see my band, my friend Crummy Joe. He played at a bar down the way, and Ozone drove us there, and we went and got all buttered up, hung out with him. I got a little hammered at that bar watching. It was nice, though. It was like hardly anybody there. It's just like lots of space between people. But he's getting a band with Harold O. and his girlfriend, and they're called Jesus Crisis. Jesus Crisis. And the hit song they had of the night was called Fist Fight in the Parking Lot. And I was like, fuck yeah, my jam right there. And it was a banger. It was a banger. But yeah, check him out. Jesus Crisis. Shout out to Crummy Joe. And then Sunday was with the kids, trick-or-treating around the neighborhood. They scored big time. I said, you motherfuckers better make sure you get me some Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. Don't even skimp out on those. I don't want no Babe Ruth. I don't want no Almond Joy. Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. I don't even want Reese's Pieces. Peanut Butter Cups. Preferably individually wrapped, but, it's okay if they're in a 2-pack. A 2-pack. What else here? What else? We're going into the studio next week. Going to do a big chunk, getting close to the end of the record here. Wrapping it up. It's coming together very nicely. We've got 5 more songs, and I want to get a few more. I want to just try and bang out a few more songs. We need to finish them up, though. I got to finish double tracking the guitars. I got to finish lyrics and singing, and then we got one new song. I think 4 songs are finished. Lyrically they're not finished, but musically they're finished. And then one of them on the last session that we had a couple weeks back, I started a song and I got it going. Like, I got the first 2 choruses and they're killer, but it needs an ending. It needs to go someplace else. And I'm thinking about doing like a Nation on Fire, where I just take the whole song in a totally different direction, fast and thrashy. We'll see if it works. I don't know. But still don't have an album title. Still working on an album title. I did have a couple ideas, though. I was talking with Jared, and we were bouncing some ideas around, bouncing some artwork ideas around, but we're getting close. Record's going to be done in January. We're here if you're listening to this in the future, this is November. We're in November now. So yeah, the plan is to wrap it up in the next month or 2. And yeah. We'd had the big tour announced the other day. Man, fucking broke the internet with that shit. Machine Head, Amon Amarth, Halo Effect, all throughout Europe. Arenas, baby. Arenas. It's going to be sick. Fucking sick, bro. It's going to be awesome. I'm really excited. Especially after not touring for 18 months I'm as excited as I can be about a tour that's happening almost a year from now. But, it's quite a ways away still. But, things to look forward to, things to keep focused on, I love having these little markers to go, okay, we got to get this done by then, or, I got to get the record done by December, January, or the record won't come out in time for the tour because it takes 8 fucking months for vinyl these days. And so, yeah. Exciting, though. Exciting, man. And yesterday was the 9th anniversary of Mitch Looker passing away, so I posted up on my Instagram. I posted a video of the last show that I ever saw him at. We were doing festivals that year, 2012, and we crossed paths with those guys a few times. And even on like off days, we cross paths and just go to a bar and just hang out and have a couple of beers. But the last show was at With Full Force Festival. And I remember watching it from the side of the stage being just like, fuck. Like, he killed it at that show. Commanding. Just fucking owned the crowd. Like, every motherfucker was eating out of his palm of his hand. Owned it. It was such a fucking killer performance by the whole band, but him in particular. And then I later got the news, so I posted that, and then I got the news right after that Malcolm Dome, Metal Hammer, Kerrang, I mean, a million, Raw Magazine, a million different UK, legendary music journalist passed away. And I guess it was unexpectedly, certainly unexpected for me. But, yeah, it was a bummer, man. It was really sad to hear. He was a great dude. Big champion of Machine Head back in the early days, especially. Like, one of the first people to write about us. And I can tell you right now, the first time that he said anything about us, I was over the moon, because I had been reading, I was in America back when I was a teenager. We would go to this place called the Record Vault. Me and my friend Jim Pittman would literally take Bart 50 miles into San Francisco. Like, we lived in Fremont, 50 miles away. We might as well have been in fucking Nevada, but we would take Bart up there, fucking 50 miles into the city. And then we'd walk another 2 miles up Polk Street, which is just nothing but like fucking junkies and gangbangers and gay dudes and fucking Christ. The things we did for metal. And we'd buy Kerrang magazine, and then the whole Bart ride back, we'd just fucking devour Kerrang magazine. And there was always like Malcolm Dome was writing, it was this guy Xavier Russell. There's a bunch of people, but Malcolm Dome, he was like kind of the thrasher. And he always wrote about Metallica and all the bands that we were into, and I knew his name, like, I just from reading all those articles, because he was like, oh, that's the dude who knows about thrash. And so, yeah, man, I just, I've met him a bunch of times. He's, we've talked a bunch of times, and we've even hung out at there's a amazing bar. Rest in peace to the Crowbar. But there's a bar in London called the Crowbar, and it's maybe the best dive bar in the world. Like, it's got nothing but thrash metal and good metal on the fucking jukebox, and rock and roll and Motorhead and everything in between. And then just I would close that bar down so many times, and then stayed in for a couple hours extra. And anyway, one of the times that I was there, I think I was on a press tour, and it might have been like the last day of my press tour or something, because I got super hammered, and I wouldn't have necessarily done that if I had interviews at o'clock in the morning. But we went there, and I went there with Michelle Kerr, who's my publicist, and we go there, and Malcolm's there, and I was just, it's fucking packed, rammed, fucking slammed to the rafters with people, and I was like, Jesus. And anyway, we started talking, and I was like, what's up, dude? And he's kind of just like kicked up in the corner in the front of the, like, right by the front door, this tiny little space to sit. And so I like post up next to him, like, hey, we can just start talking, and we're drinking and just shooting the shit. And I was like, man, you must have seen so many people coming in and out of this bar here. Like, Dave Grohl calls it his favorite bar, and somehow we get onto the topic of like all the shit that he saw in the 70s and the 80s. And he knew he didn't. I mean, he knew he was friendly. And I don't want to say he was friends, but he made it sound like he was friendly with Bon Scott from AC/DC, and like Bon Scott would come into these bars in London back when AC/DC moved to London, and like just he was like, this guy was the coolest dude you ever seen in your life. Like he was just fucking cool. You know, he could come in and like this guy could drink any man under the table. He could get any woman he wanted to. Like his charms were irresistible. He just sat there telling me Bon Scott story after Bon Scott story, you know, from AC/DC, first singer of AC/DC. And I was just, it was so awesome to hear, you know, like it was just like, here we are like 1 degree away from Bon Scott. And you know, that's probably my favorite memory of him. And yeah, it's my favorite memory of him. And I gotta say, I'm gonna miss him because he was quite the character. And I'm sure the metal journalist world will miss him as well. So I put up on my general journals, I put up some which you can find on machinehead1.com, or you can subscribe. But I put up a link. Kerrang did a really nice obituary. Metal Hammer UK did a really nice obituary. So if you go there and you want to read them, you can check them out there. But dude, rest in peace, Malcolm Dome. Rest in peace, man. I think you're going to really dig this next interview, man. This is over a year in the making. Over a year in the making. And you know what? I'm not going to play any music because, again, I really got like hit with the fucking copyright strikes hard on the last one. And but we do talk about a song. Should I play that song? I just feel like it's going to get a copyright strike, and I got it's such a fucking pain in the ass once the clip is already up and then it has a copyright strike. So yeah, I'm going to skip it. Maybe I'll have G Mike put it in for a second in the middle of the clip when we start talking about it. But we start talking about, I don't know, I'm not even going to get into it. This is a fucking great, Scott Ian is awesome. Let me just, fucking great guest. Such a good guest. Like stories galore. This is part 2. We got part 1, and now there's going to have to be a part 3 because we barely even, dude, we've got so much more of his career to go. And what an awesome career he's had. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to start it right here. Welcome back, my first reoccurring guest, Mr. Scott, I can't call him Mr. Scott, the mighty Scott Ian. Scott Ian.
How are you?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
I'm good. Good to see you again.
I know. I was looking back at our last interview, which was part 1. And I want to say that was like over a year ago now. This is like, holy moly.
If you told me it was 5 years ago, I would believe you. Like time has no meaning anymore. It's all weird in my brain.
Totally. I actually thought it was this year for some reason. I was looking back through all my old podcasts and I was like, I swear to God, it was like March. And I was like, no, oh fuck, it was like March of the previous year.
That's insane. I would have thought it was this year too. That's crazy.
Yeah, I hear you. You know, I was looking at that, and totally to my surprise, we only made it to. We made it to SOD. we made it to the second album, and SOD. It was a 3-hour conversation. I was like, holy shit.
We better get parts 3 and 4 on the calendar now.
I guess so. Before we get into that, did you guys survive the bomb cyclone that hit California the other day, or was it not too bad?
Yeah, it was. It got, I think up north got hit way worse than here. I mean, we just had some nice rain that we obviously need. More importantly, hopefully the mountains got hit up in like the Sierra Nevada. I hope they got snow like they say they were going to, so we're not all running away from California 3 years from now because there's no water.
Right. Right.
Was it bad for you up there?
I had 2 feet of water under my house. It was like, I came into my garage after we had to batten down all the hatches outside because it was insane. So me and my son are, locking everything down. I go into the garage to grab something. I just see water flooding out of my garage. I'm like, what the fuck? I open up the crawl space and I'm like, oh my God, fucking 2 sump pumps later, I was okay.
Yeah, no, it wasn't nearly that bad here. Not at all.
Right on. All good. I guess we should pick up where we left off with part 1, which is, so you guys have finished. You were saying that you'd kind of finished SOD. You did some shows with Motorhead, and then I guess you start getting into Among the Living, which, in my opinion, and I think I brought this up, like had a little bit of SOD style riffage on it. Like it seemed a little faster and more moshier.
Well, not to go off on a tangent, but just chronologically, the last show SOD played was December 21st, 1985. At that time, I think we did 7 gigs total, and that gig was with Motorhead at the Old Ritz in New York. It was like we called it our Christmas show, and then Anthrax went off to tour Spreading the Disease in 1986.
Oh, okay.
So most of 86, we were touring, Spreading. Started that tour in arenas, opening for Black Sabbath and Wasp.
Right, I read that. The 7th Star. I don't even know who the singer is who's the singer of Black Sabbath at that point.
It was Glenn Hughes.
Glenn Hughes. Okay.
And while we were on those dates, he was canned, and they brought in a guy named Ray Gillen, who was just kind of hanging around, waiting, like on the dates. Like, it was a very weird time. Obviously, not being a member of Black Sabbath, just an outsider looking in,
right? And
a Black Sabbath fan. It was a very weird time for what they actually called on that record. I believe it said Tony Iommi's Black Sabbath, or Black Sabbath featuring Tony Iommi. It was something weird because he was the only dude. But then Geezer, I think, was there for a minute. No, he wasn't there because Danny Spitz's brother, Dave, was playing bass.
What? That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's so random.
We were just happy. We were in arenas. So. Right.
And you got a homie in Black Sabbath because it's your guitar player's brother.
And Tony was very nice to us, and so Glenn was amazing to us. Granted, he'd be the first to tell you he was kind of in the depths of his substance abuse problems at that time, and it was pretty much right after that tour he went and got sober and has been sober ever since. But we were in arenas and got to play the Meadowlands in New Jersey. So it was our first hometown arena show. And I mean,
Wasp is on the bill for part of it or all of it?
Wasp was on the bill. It was a lot of fun to hang out with Chris Holmes. I have to admit, he's never
it wasn't dull.
Anything he said. We were never lacking for laughs hanging around with that guy. The shows weren't selling out, but still, we were playing to 4,000 or 5,000 people probably, which for us was insane. We were used to playing to 400 people in a club. So they were great shows for us. And we were always, we were just so thankful to Tony for having us. And I don't know if at the time he had no idea who the fuck we were or how we got there, but he was very nice to us. And we had one funny thing I can remember from that run was Billy Milano was out with us, I think, on those dates. He might have been driving the RV, and it was backstage either in Connecticut or Rhode Island or something. And we had the dressing room right at the end of the hallway backstage, right before you walk out to go into the arena up on the stage. And we were right there at the end. So anyone going to the stage walked right past us. And he made a point of waiting outside the dressing room when Wasp was walking past to go to the stage, and he didn't have very kind things to yell at Blackie Lawless. And I seem to remember the word poser used quite loudly. And, when you get this very angry looking skinhead guy yelling at you, it's, it wasn't like Blackie was going to say anything back to him.
Right.
But then later that evening, our tour manager came in and he said, your guests are no longer allowed in the hallway. Any guests we have to stay in the dressing room now.
You're like, he's not our guest, he's our driver.
Yeah, he's working for us. But yeah, we'll ask him to please not yell at the support bands anymore.
Is Black Sabbath playing songs like Dio era songs and Ozzy era songs, like, or is it just focusing on?
I mean, it was definitely Ozzy era stuff. I don't even remember. Like, I kind of remember standing on the side and just kind of being confused by the whole thing, like what was happening. And they ended up like a month of that tour just went away. Like, all of a sudden we were out on like the first 5 or 6 shows or something, and then we found out, the rest of the tour's canceled.
Geez. Crazy.
And then we just were able somehow, like 2 weeks later, we were out on a headline run all through the summer, just out playing clubs. That was like the first time on that run, 86, we came up and didn't just play like in the city. We played like in Guerneville and Santa Rosa. And we were playing like some of those
markets in California. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like us and Suicidal and like DRI and like, it was like all these bands playing with us. Like, I remember that was Brian Posehn. The first time he ever saw us, I want to say it was like Guerneville, if I'm pronouncing it.
Yeah.
It
was a club up there. It was kind of a club up there for a hot minute that was way the fuck in the middle of nowhere, but had some.
Oh yeah, I remember being in the woods.
Yeah.
But yeah, we toured all of '86. First time in Japan. Of course, we went with Metallica to Europe. Did the whole UK leg of that. It was Master of Puppets for them and Spreading for us, and that's, of course, the tour where Cliff got killed.
Yeah, we talked about that on the last one.
So Spreading Disease tour, and then we get into living.
You know what I wanted to ask you though about the Black Sabbath tour, because I know what you mean when you say like it was confusing, because I'm to the death diehard. My favorite band is Sabbath. Those first 6 records changed my life. Unfortunately, the first time that I ever saw Sabbath, I didn't see Sabbath forever. I didn't see him on Ozzy or Dio or anything. The first time I saw him was with Tony the Cat Martin on lead vocals. And I was just like, the same things. I was just so confused. I was like, what's going on?
Some Norwegian band, right? Or something.
Yes.
He's an American guy, but he played in like a not very good band.
I don't even know where he came from. I was just like this. I left halfway through. I was like,
oh wait, no. I'm not thinking of.
You might have been American.
I'm thinking of a guy named Tony Harnell. Totally different thing. I know who you're talking about. Tony Martin. Yes.
Yeah. Tony the Cat. His nickname was the Cat.
Yeah. So you didn't even see Heaven and Hell or Mob Rules tour.
Nothing. Yeah. Literally the first time I see Black Sabbath in my whole entire life is this Tony at the Warfield in San Francisco, Tony the Cat Martin. And I was just like, I gotta leave. I can't, I'm going to keep my memories pure.
Yeah.
Like, I love you, Tony Iommi, but I'm going to just.
My first time seeing them was on Never Say Die with Van Halen opening.
Oh shit. I've heard so much about this tour.
And it's all true. I mean, I don't even like that Sabbath record really. And Van Halen
opening track and Johnny Blade.
In that period, Van Halen was the best band on the planet, right? Opening for Sabbath on their way out of the Ozzy era.
Right.
So, I mean, come on. It was just like, I mean, yes, I stayed and watched Sabbath, but it was I mean, you never saw a band like just get destroyed as badly as, maybe when Dokken went on after Metallica on the Monsters of Rock thing,
right.
like that's similar. And I'm not comparing Sabbath to Dokken,
right.
But yeah, Van Halen was insane. I mean, everybody at Madison Square Garden was waiting. It was the first time we're going to see Van Halen, And
okay, so this is like the first kind of major tour they're doing after first album drops.
Yeah, I want to say the second record was already out.
Oh, okay.
Wasn't that tour like 78?
78?
Yeah, 79.
I don't know.
Can't remember. But I feel like the first 2 records were out. But yeah, they crushed them. And then cut to, a year or two later, Sabbath puts out the Heaven and Hell record, which I love.
Yeah.
And I go see that twice. And that was, I was already a massive Dio fan going back to, of course, his Rainbow days. So, and that show was incredible. And Mob Rules was incredible. I was like, wow, talk about a band like redeeming themselves. Holy shit.
Right. Those two records are phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal albums.
Incredible.
Great songs.
Yeah.
So many good songs. Sign of the Southern Cross.
Oh my God. So
Die Young.
Going off the edge of the world. Like
yeah.
That riff. Oh my God. That song is so great.
Yeah. Even like Children of the Sea. To me, Children of the Sea was the song that grabbed me off of that record. Just fucking bangers.
Yeah.
Do you
not to get on a tangent about Sabbath, but yeah.
we could dedicate a good half an hour to Sabbath.
Easy.
You know what? The thing that we eventually toured with Heaven and Hell, and I wanted to ask you about this because you did like a week worth of dates. Is that what you said? Like 2 week or two with the dates with the Seventh Star era of Black Sabbath?
Yeah, I think it ended up being just about a week. Yeah, like 6 shows or something, a week and a half.
Maybe you felt differently about Tony Iommi, but I remember when we were doing the Heaven and Hell dates, like I'd walk out my dressing room sometimes, and then Tony would walk out his dressing room just coincidentally at the same time, and then just look over at me and be like, "Oh, hey Rob, how you doing, mate?" And I was just like, "Hey, Tony Iommi,
yeah,
how are you doing?"
I know. I did when I was doing my talking shows. I have a whole bit about that, about meeting him for the first time on those dates, because one of their people came to our people. We had 3 people with us, but and said it was after the first night, and they said Tony would like to meet you guys after the show and thank you for coming on these dates. And we were like, he's thanking us, like, what the fuck, like, here, take my wallet, like,
right.
I mean, and it was like that, same thing. And then we're standing in some room backstage after Sabbath is done, and he walks in, and it's him, and he's in a long black leather coat, and he's the fucking mustache, and he doesn't break a sweat ever, and it's just like, and I do this whole bit where in my mind, well, I don't say in my mind, but I go up to him and I grab him by his lapels and I'm shaking, go, Tony, fucking Tony Iommi, like, do you know what you mean to me? And then I was like, actually, that's what I was doing in my mind, because if I actually did that, I would have been thrown off the floor. But yeah, I fucking lost my mind. And from that point, I mean, that's 1980s, probably at shows or events or whatever. And he knows my name, which is unbelievable to me.
Right.
When my name comes out of his mouth, it just doesn't make any sense. That guy, even, it doesn't make any sense to me. And it's something, and I could stand there and have a perfectly calm, polite conversation. But I mean, I'm literally shitting my pants.
You're just going, be cool, dude. Be cool.
It's fucking nuts. There's so many dudes like that. I'm sure you have the same thing with lots of dudes when, like, you just would never think in a million years. And I mean, I was standing next to Jimmy Page once watching a Metallica show in London, and he said hi to me, like, and I'm just like, it's just not. This isn't
like, oh, hi, Scott.
Like, I obviously misheard. I mean, it's crazy shit like that. It's like, how the fuck is he even, I don't know how Jimmy Page knows. Maybe Ross Halfin told him that guy's name is Scott.
Right.
I don't know. But he's done it multiple times.
You know what? I think he stays up on shit. I mean, I remember when we won a Metal Hammer Award, and we had to walk past him and Geezer were sitting at a table. We had to walk past them to get the award. And he's like, "Congratulations."
Yeah.
I just won the award, and now Tony Iommi congratulated me by name. I was like, what? Does not compute at all.
That'll never go away. I don't think that, I mean, I think our generation certainly, but I can't even say our generation, because if you talk to those guys, and I've talked to some guys from that generation before us, or even 2 generations before us, when you're talking about like Sabbath or Zeppelin, and you know, they feel the same way about like meeting the Beatles. You know, like if you you talk to those guys, like when they met Paul McCartney, it's the same thing. You know, like they fucking lose their minds,
right?
Because they were just kids listening to Beatles records and other dudes too, and so on and so on. I'm sure the first time Paul and John and Ringo and George met Chuck Berry, they probably shit their pants. So,
right.
You know,
right.
I mean,
or Elvis.
Yeah.
There was that big famous meeting between them and Elvis.
So I just think, you know, I don't know if that ever went away, it would really suck. If that excitement that you felt when you were a kid getting into this stuff, if that ever went away, then you shouldn't be playing music anymore. I guess would be what this all wraps up to in my brain.
Yeah. I tell you what, the first time, just we can move on from this after this, but the first time I meet Tony Iommi, we're due the Ozfest 97, which was the tour where it was Ozzy doing a solo album set, and then followed by Black Sabbath doing the classic Sabbath era set. I mean, it was fucking awesome. You know, like it was great. Had Joe Holmes was on guitar, Trujillo was on bass, Puffy was on drums for the solo thing, and then it was Geezer, Puffy, and Tony plus Ozzy. Yeah, so it was for me, lifelong Ozzy fan as well as Sabbath fan. This was like dream come true shit. Like I couldn't even, you know, Geezer, like I'd stand on the side of the stage to watch Sabbath. I'm just beyond amazed that I'm on the side of the stage watching Black Sabbath, and Geezer would like, come here, mate, like stand behind my amp, and I'd just be like standing behind his amp. I was like, what the fuck? This is crazy, you know. And so Ozzy gets sick on one of the shows, and he loses his voice, and it's in Columbus, Ohio, and he'd been kind of losing his voice in the shows leading up to it, and then it was just like, it's over, he can't sing,
right?
And so at one point, Ozzy's people, I'm hanging out with Dimebag and Anselmo in the hallway, just drinking and talking and waiting for them to go on.
Right.
And Ozzy's people come up and they ask Phil, hey, would you go up and sing with Ozzy's band tonight? Ozzy can't play. Would you go up and jam a couple of songs with them to just, you know, so people don't go crazy?
Right.
And Anselmo looks at me and he grabs me and he's like, only a Flynn does it here. And I was just all, I mean, this is just the wildest like conversation to begin with. And I was like, sure. Yeah. I mean, he's like, you know this. I'm like, of course I know fucking every lyric. I could, you know, blindfolded and, you know, hammered. And so we go into the Ozzy band room and start talking with Joe Holmes and Trujillo and Puffy about like, hey, like what songs? Manson's on the tour. Manson comes in, like, and I've already called Crazy Train. And Manson comes in and goes, I want to do Crazy Train. I'm like, oh no, like, I already called it. I already called it. And he's just like, how about we do it together? And I was like, okay, like sure. You know? And so then at some point we're having this conversation, and you know, even though I've been on this tour now for 3 or 4 weeks, the Sabbath guys would arrive pretty late and then just immediately leave.
Right. So
in walks Tony Iommi into the Ozzy jam room, and he's like, I hear that we're gonna jam some songs, you know, like, and he's like, Phil, would you like to jam a couple of Black Sabbath songs? And again, like, if Flynn does it with me, I'll do it. And I was like, so then Tony's like, come into our dressing room. And then now we go into the dressing room with Iommi and Geezer, and Puffy follows in because Puffy's in the band. And I'm just like, this is fucking insane. Like, I'm getting asked to sing for Black Sabbath right now on, you know, 5 minutes notice. And this is the first time I'm meeting Tony Iommi in my life. I'm like I said, like what you said earlier, like all I'm telling myself, like all I want to do is just hug Tony Iommi and cry. Like, oh my God, you're the fuck, you know? And I'm just like repeatedly just, dude, be cool. Be cool. Just be cool. I'm like, hey, yeah, whatever you want. I know all the songs. I know all the lyrics. He's like, are you sure? I'm like, I know every fucking lyric. Yeah. Like, mark my fucking words.
Right.
I will die on this mountain. I know every fucking lyric. It doesn't end up happening, but we do end up jamming with the Aussie band.
Oh, okay.
And it was actually pretty rad until about 6 songs in, and then Dimebag went up and did "Bark at the Moon" and didn't know a lot of the words, and then the crowd started getting kind of like, what the fuck's going on? And then somebody else came on and they didn't know the words, and then it was just like, where the fuck is Black Sabbath? And then fucking full scale riot.
Oh,
I mean, like, it was wild. That was the first time, but that moment of just, you never think you're going to meet.
Yeah, I know.
Growing up, you're going to meet Tony Iommi. And then if you do, it's going to be like, oh, hey, nice to meet you. Here's an autograph, kid, and, get out of here. And so it is just crazy how life takes you down these wild paths being in a band.
Yeah, it's nuts. It's nuts.
Yeah. You after you return from Europe, I would imagine you guys are in. I can't even imagine what your headspace is. I mean,
yeah, we were
devastated.
Devastated, angry. Yeah, all the what is how many steps of anger, grief,
right?
What are they all? Not believing that
denial.
Denial. Yeah. The 5 stages of grief or whatever. Yeah. I mean, and Cliff was our friend. He wasn't our bass player. Obviously it was, I would say the same, like you said about what were your guys' mindsets. I mean, Metallica's mindset, having been there with them it was devastating. They were devastated. Kirk and we already talked about this, right? I mean,
yeah, you talked about that he just wanted to hang out with you. And
I immediately flew. We got home and I flew to San Francisco, and I was actually staying with James in his little apartment. He had an apartment in the city at the time.
Okay.
And I was staying with him and spent about a week just because the funeral was happening. And every day we would go out to Kirk's mom's house in El Sobrante. And everyone would just kind of be sitting around the kitchen. I met Puffy for the first time, actually, that week, because him and Cliff were close. Just trying to be there for my friends, and not think about it too much, because it just was so unbelievable, and there was really no way to get any type of, closure or understanding. But we, as a band, we already had songs written for which was to become Among the Living. We were already playing I'm the Law and Indians
right
live. And
that's so wild to me that you're playing 2 brand new unreleased songs on tour while opening for Metallica.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
and 2 songs that, I mean, not just any fucking songs, 2 songs that literally, I mean, you were saying on the last one that those are the first 2 songs you fucking wrote for Among the Living. That's crazy. Like, those are like genre defining songs.
We knew they were pretty good. We felt confident. So, so we dove in. We spent the rest of '86 writing that record. Writing and then getting in the studio. I'm pretty sure by the end of the year we were in Florida recording the album. The song "Horror of It All," I don't know if we touched on it last time. That was specifically lyrically. We had the music already, and then lyrically, I wrote that about Cliff's death and how it affected us and what we were thinking at the time. And having never lost somebody, luckily, really close to me at the ripe old age of 22 or whatever at the time. I had like 1 or 2 grandparents had passed, but it was when I was much younger. I didn't really hardly know them. And Cliff was, I'd spent a lot of time with Cliff for 3 years, like a lot of time over those 3 years, like from the time I met him. Anyway, we made the record, recorded in Florida, and then mixed it at Compass Point.
Eddie Kramer, right?
Yeah, we got Eddie Kramer. We didn't think in a million years there was no way we were going to get him, but we all loved a lot of his work, especially the stuff where it just sounded like a band playing live in the room. And he said yes when someone at Island Records reached out, and he said yes. And we mixed it in the Bahamas. And the only reason that happened, is because Chris Blackwell, who owned Island Records, he owned Compass Point Studios. So like we had just been looking at pictures of Iron Maiden like a year earlier at Compass Point, you know, in Kerrang magazine. Right. And now we're standing there living in the same condos they were living in, drinking at the same little bar they were drinking in down the road from the studio. Like it was just, you know, again, this is like the early 1987 and we're in the Bahamas.
Right. You're
else,
just like,
you know,
fucking paradise.
Their asses off back in the city.
Right.
And we're in the Bahamas.
You're looking at those pictures of that super tan Iron Maiden with those short shorts.
Yeah. That was Joey and Danny. They were super tan with short shorts. But yeah, it was like really in that moment, I remember because especially also knowing the record we had, because, you know, you were listening to the mixes and just feeling really great about the record, knowing that we felt really great about the record. And knowing that this is going to come out in a couple of months and we're going to start touring again, and really felt like, you know, this could really happen. Like this could get bigger than where we are now. Like, look, we're like, I mean, now meaning as a band playing shows, like in clubs, like we were already like, look at Metallica, you know, they were already, they had gone out and opened for Ozzy, right? You know, and we were out supporting them in Europe, you know, already in places playing to 5,000 people, you know, and we're like, you know, we're just a record away from getting to where they are now. And we really felt like we made that record. And certainly standing in the Bahamas helped making the record, because we never thought that would happen.
You're in fucking paradise.
Yeah. So, and it did. It you know, all our wildest dreams up until that point, Among the Living made it all happen for us. Like that, it was everything we hoped for. People connected with it the way we hoped they would, you know. And you know, I look back on it now. There's 6 songs on that record that, you know, I'd be hard pressed to say like that, at least at some point on a leg of a tour, every year since, all those songs get played.
Yeah.
You know, it's like they're just that important to us. And I don't think we've ever, the only song that's ever been in every single set since that record is Caught in a Mosh. I don't think we've never not played it.
Wow.
Indians has been out. I'm the Law's been out. Huh. But Among the Living's been out. Caught in a Mosh has been in, I want to say it's been in every show since the first show of that tour in 87.
I think that I Am the Law is probably a perfect metal song. Right, like I think it should be revered in the same breath as a Master of Puppets.
Wow.
Like to me, that song is so fucking heavy but catchy, and the killer key changes and just so crafted so well. Like
I remember Charlie came in with those parts, and it just sounded like a superhero theme to me. Like it reminded me of it. I wasn't going to write about Superman, and I figured, well, I love Judge Dredd, and nobody outside of the UK, people really don't even know who the fuck Judge Dredd is. So fuck it, I'm going to write about that, because it's the most like hardcore shit that I'm reading. It's super violent, it's super aggressive, and it just kind of matched the feeling of that song. And it all just, the big anthemic chorus, and it just kind of went hand in hand. It just worked so well together.
Yeah, no, well done on that, man. Well done.
Thanks.
Like seriously, just every time I hear that open, I remember watching you guys at the not Clash of the Titans, the Big Four. The Big Four, and you started that, and I was like, it was goosebumps. I was like, holy fuck, this is so sick.
Oh, hey, you just mentioned Big Four, so I'm just going to jump ahead a little bit, or at the same time, because I don't know when that phrase was coined, or who actually, if it was like one of the old school Kerrang guys, maybe, or, you know, someone like Howard Johnson or Malcolm Dome, or was it a U.S. writer? Like, I have no idea where.
Rumor has it it's Don K.
Don K. Okay. Yeah. All right. I love Don K. So I, you know, obviously back then when we were doing those shows 10 years ago, we talked a lot about it, but people still bring it up to me all the time, you know, and I was thinking about this. Oh, I know what it was. I was doing an interview for Jackson Guitars in Japan, and I have no idea how it even came up. But I just went off on this tangent about how they need whoever the powers that be, like the mayor of heavy metal. I don't know if then we have to. Maybe Lars needs to get a phone call, and he can decree that the Big Four needs to officially be changed to the Big Five, because it's always bugged me that Exodus doesn't get the representation and the credit where credit is due. And I understand the Big Four. I get it, because maybe the four bands had more success, certainly coming out of the 80s, and whereas, Exodus certainly had their peaks and valleys, and maybe didn't have the same success going forward as some of the other bands. And, but the way I look at it is, if you want to look at the bands that like really were there at the inception, I mean, Bonded by Blood was out way before Killing Is My Business. Yeah, and I get it. Dave was in Metallica, but Kirk was in Exodus. It's like, come on. Like, I don't know if I need to start an online petition or like what it is, but I'm actually not kidding. I mean, I know this is a silly thing, to be like, but I truly believe that it needs to be, because Bonded by Blood was come on. I've gone on record. I think it's the best debut record of the five of us. It's my favorite of the five, hands down, and such an influential record. And I just think, it officially needs to be changed. So there's the clickbait for this fucking right there. Like,
dude, I'm fucking fully with you. I mean, I'm so like, I was fucking so diehard about Exodus. Like I saw Exodus when they opened for you guys on the Fistful of Metal Raven tour. You know, like they were around playing all those fucking crazy thrash songs. Whatever Bad Business or the record label delaying the record or what, like it somehow didn't come out. I mean, I had Bonded by Blood 6 months before it was even released on vinyl.
Yeah. I mean, it's like same with us, because we knew Todd from Torrid Records. He was a friend of ours in New York. And
right.
So I had a cassette of that. And I mean, I just think it's something that's been overlooked, and they just deserve the credit, man.
They absolutely agree.
Deserve it. And every time it comes up, I say, it should be the Big Five. Like it really, and then whatever, that probably opens 100 other doors, but I'm not talking.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't open 100. People always say that, and it pisses me off. It doesn't open 100 other doors. No, it should be fucking Exodus, period. Stop right there.
Yeah. It should be.
Gary Hill pioneering so much of that, that early tremolo bar, woo, all that shit that Dimebag would then be inspired by. I had all those bootlegs of him doing that stuff. Then he goes and records the record, doesn't use his bar because something happens. And, that doesn't happen on that record, but it was happening on all those bootlegs. Like, so we knew all that shit.
Yeah. And Kirk had riffs and songs that everybody knows that ended up in Metallica songs. And, it's just, they were there at the inception of what people decided to call thrash metal. They were right there in the beginning, and they deserve the credit. And I don't know how it officially gets changed. Who makes that? Who makes that decree?
Do we have to elect Lars to be the mayor of metal first? Is that the first step?
I used to joke that King Diamond was the mayor of heavy metal, but because I guess you could even argue that all the bands of the Big Five were all listening to Merciful Fate.
Oh my God.
So that early Merciful Fate stuff is so responsible for all of us.
Totally. So I wouldn't even say listening; it would be worshiping.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it needs to happen. So if once this gets out on the metal sites, maybe somehow Lars will see it, and he could put the stamp on it, make it official.
Do you remember when did you see Merciful Fate when they first came around with Motorhead, or any of the first times they came around?
I saw them the first time I saw them. It had to be, it was on Melissa for sure.
Yeah.
I think it was at L'Amour's, and I'm pretty sure the Slayer guys, for some reason, were in New York at the time. And it's the first time I met those dudes. I remember being at the back bar at L'Amour's, having beers with like Jeff and Kerry,
Okay.
and Merciful Fate played that night. So whatever year that was.
You know, it was great. Do you remember like King Diamond was the most pissed off dude ever? Do you remember that era of King Diamond?
Not really. No, I didn't know anything about him personally or anything.
No, I mean, just like on stage, like he was like angry King Diamond.
Right.
When they came through the first time I ever saw him, they were opening for Motorhead. And I guess, you know, like they had a reputation for like him picking fights with people back then.
Wow.
And somebody, like some dudes were spitting on him trying to get into, and fucking it worked. And he fucking went off on it. Fuck you, motherfuckers. I fucking jumps into the crowd. And we were like, holy shit. Like this dude's fucking nuts. Like it was everything we hoped it would be.
What would be even better is if he would have made some weird Doctor Strange hand things and cast a spell on
Cursed him, yes. Totally. I don't know. We went off on Big Four. I can't remember.
Yeah, I mean, among the living,
Compass Point, you're in Bahamas. You feel like.
I mean, you know, I don't need to talk about it for an hour. It really, to put it in a nutshell, we started that tour in May of '87 at a place called the Penny Arcade in Rochester, New York.
Yeah.
Which
just
is
like it's just like a little small arcade.
Like a 500 cap room.
Yep.
Sold out. We were on a headline run. I think Metal Church was opening. And
did you guys play the Omni on that run in Oakland?
Probably. Yeah. And then by December, so how was that? June, July, August, December.
Record drops in May, you said?
Yeah. 7 months later, by December of '87, we're headlining to 5,000 to 10,000 people, depending on the city, in 7 months.
That's insane.
Like we went from, you know, playing the Metro probably on the first leg of the tour in Chicago to, I think, selling out 2 nights at the Aragon. Like,
holy
shit like that.
Shit.
Like,
that's a fucking giant jump.
You know, it went like this in 7 months. And it wasn't just us. Yes, we made the right record at the right time. It was that whole scene in 1987. Shit just blew up across the board for every band involved. And I mean, as the year we played Donington for the first time that summer, and the lineup was Cinderella, Wasp, Anthrax, Metallica, Dio, Bon Jovi, and that was our first.
Dio under you guys?
No, over.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay. Starting from first, Cinderella, Wasp, us.
Oh, gotcha.
Dio, Bon Jovi, and it was going to be our first, you know, ever festival, and we couldn't obviously be more excited to be playing Donington, you know, and we had the fucking show of our lives, like, and so did Metallica, and Ronnie did well that day too, and it kind of poured on Bon Jovi, and I got to give it up for the crowd; they stayed, but you know, me being the Kill Posers kid I was at the time, you know, it was very much all about us and Metallica that day, in my mind anyway, and and then we came back that fall of '87, headline UK European tour with Testament opening for us, sold out all the places we had been supporting Metallica in the year before. And, you know, I mean, it was everything we had hoped for, you know, and the way shit in your mind, well, this is how it works. You start here and then you get in the theaters and then you go from theaters to arenas like that. 'Cause that's what Maiden did. That's what Priest did. That's what all our heroes did. That's what Metallica was doing. So it only made sense that we were doing it too. And, you know, it just seemed like the logical next step, and it was actually happening. That was the amazing thing. Like, it was like, holy fuck. I remember standing on stage at the Aragon. It was Celtic Frost and Exodus on this.
Dude, I just read that. I was like, Celtic Frost opening. That's sick. Was this like Morbid Tales era? Like, what era is this?
Yeah, or what was the next record?
Circle the Tyrants, or
yeah. It was the December of '87. We did like a 3-week run before Christmas, and we had the two of them opening for us. And I remember standing on the side of the stage, like watching Celtic Frost, and I look at Charlie, like we're standing there watching, and there's a fucking sea of people at the Aragon, and I looked at him and I said, "Where the fuck did all these people come from?" Like, literally, like 5 months ago, we did 1,000 people at the Metro. Like people just found out, you know. I know Metallica, of course, had so much to do with it because they had already, you know, they had already done that Ozzy run and they were playing big venues. And there's that trickle down factor. If a kid goes in the store and he's, well, what else sounds like Metallica? And well, what else is in the racks? Among the Living, Rain and Blood, Peace Sells, you know, that's, you know, it's really had so much to do with, you know, them opening that door in a underground yet way more mainstream way than we had ever had before, because they were certainly leading that charge, you know?
Yeah. Was, you guys were getting a little bit of video play on MTV around then?
Well, Madhouse got on Spreading. Madhouse, we did it, and they refused to play it. Of course, we banned by MTV, thinking that was somehow going to help us. It was not like there was YouTube back then, so you just couldn't see it.
Right. Right.
But
nobody knew what the video was.
Yeah, but we did a video for Indians on Among the Living, and that by that point, I'm pretty sure Headbangers Ball was a show with that first guy, Adam, whatever, the blonde dude.
Oh, right. Okay.
Name I can't remember. And I remember Indians being on Headbangers Ball quite a bit. So that was.
Do you think that was it, or was it? I think it was just more like, it felt more like underground, you know, word of mouth to me. Yeah. At least on my.
Oh, 100%. It was definitely the word of mouth thing of just kids looking for, you know, there was this exciting new sound, you know, faster and harder, and the guitars and riffs, and you know, people just finding out about it. Older brothers, younger brothers, just that whole thing. It was just super. It was that wave, and that wave was building and building and building. And in '87, it broke, and we all got to be there at the right time, you know, because going into '88 with, you know, the aptly named State of Euphoria. And, you know, you got to remember, too, these were the times where you were making like a record a year, which is, you know.
Right.
Which
it's a lot.
Generation, I know. The generation before us was making 2 records a year.
I know. It's
Aerosmith.
Every 9 months. Yeah, like every 9 months, new 8 songs.
Yeah. So, you know, the idea was you had to be out there writing when you were on tour, because you already knew, like, all right, well, Among the Living was our biggest tour. We did 200-something shows. And granted, we were playing 6-7 nights a week a lot of the time, so it didn't take that long to. But, you know, toured more of the world than we'd ever had, and had started writing. And it was in like spring of '88, we finished that tour officially. We were out with Kiss in the States. Kiss was on Crazy Nights,
right?
And we played San Francisco Civic on that.
I saw you guys on that run.
And we knew these were going to be the last dates, and we had to get this new record done, because we already had dates with Maiden coming in the summer of '88, this Monsters of Rock thing. And we had to have the record done, or at least have the first song, and then the record would follow. And, you know, it was kind of a bit
pressure.
Of
so the pressure is you gotta get the record done so that you can do the tour with Maiden, because you got to have a new record out in order to be on tour with Maiden.
Yeah. In order to be on this
kind of a common thing back then.
Oh yeah.
To push a band, even if you've only got 4 weeks, you got to write the record, because you need to have, I think Testament got into that same thing too. Chuck was talking about that for their 4th record.
Right.
Same thing. They had a big Megadeth, Judas Priest tour.
Right.
And, you know, I think Megaforce or whoever they were with at the time was like, you got to.
Well, yeah, we had the same agent as Maiden. John Jackson. He's still our agent. And, it was just part of the thing back then, because they knew that, well, at that point already, we had a gold album, right? Our first gold record.
Among the Living goes gold.
Yeah. Which, you know, back
crazy.
Then, big fucking deal.
Huge deal.
I don't want to I'm not trying to play it down in any way, shape, or form. I mean, we were only 40 years removed from Fistful of Metal, right?
Right.
And we're sitting on that's how it worked back then. We signed that deal at Island. They used to say a 5-album deal with the idea that they're going to build you as a band. And that's how record companies used to work.
Right.
And so we're on our 3rd album, and we're actually ahead of schedule. We've got a gold album on our 3rd album, and actually only 2nd album for Island. And you know, so now we're going in '88, and we've got a.
You know what? I want to say something though. I think that, like, as I'm listening to you, like the thing that, and I think this totally helps, but people like, I think when you think about things, manifest destiny, and like you're manifesting your success or whatever you're manifesting in your life.
Yeah.
And it's like, I loved what you said just now about that, we saw all our idols do it. This is what Iron Maiden did. This is what Judas, this is what Metallica just did. Like, for you, it was so normal that the normal course of events would be you would put out a third record and it would explode.
Yeah, right. Like, I know.
It's so not the way it really, same thing happened with Slayer, but like, you're just like, yeah, of course, like our third record's going to do great. And that's just, but in some ways, do you feel like that, that's a pretty positive mindset to be in, like you're in whatever you're going through in your personal life, but like you're doing that. And it's like, it is manifesting it in a way, It
is. Look, we were working our asses off, but
yes,
we were working our asses off at something that we loved so much and we're having so much fun doing. I mean, all we wanted to do, I remember the days of being in a van, right? Or an RV, and that idea of someday we're going to get a bus, right? And that first tour you do where you get to step on a tour bus and sleep in a bunk. I mean, I remember that like it was yesterday. Maybe I don't get quite as excited about getting on a bus,
of course,
now, but I'm telling you, like back then, again, 20, at this point, 23 years old, all 86, 87, 23, 24 years old. Dude, if I never came home, it would have been great. I never wanted to get off the bus.
Right.
So all we wanted to do was work at being a band and move the band forward every day. What can we do to push the band forward another step? That's all we thought about. I mean, when it's the cliche, we lived, breathed, slept, bled Anthrax. That's all we did for years. I mean, for me, from 81 to 92, that 11 years, from Fistful of Metal to Killer Bees and Bring the Noise. It was 11 years of, literally, I never even looked back. Never took a second to even, like, it was just go, go, go like a fucking shark. You got to move forward or die.
Right.
And it was all working because the records were selling more and more and more and more. And, I'm the Man goes platinum, like
that's crazy.
Fucking joke song I wrote in my bedroom at my mom's apartment with my best friend, John Rooney. Like it goes fucking platinum. Right. And at State of Euphoria ends up going platinum. Like it just,
no shit. Does it really? Holy fuck.
Not immediately.
Okay. Gotcha.
Down the line. Gotcha. But gold instantly. It used to be that thing. Like it shipped gold,
right.
Which means, it shipped 500,000. It took a couple of months to sell through, but they used to say it shipped gold.
Still, that fucking the fact that it sold through in 3 months is crazy.
Exactly.
So motherfuckers would kill for that now.
We were so just into it. We were so happy. It's everything we wanted, and then State of Euphoria too. We knew, and I've talked about this before. It's no big secret that I'm not a big fan of that album because I know we rushed it. I was there. I was in the room. I know what songs we had worked on for months sometimes you write it. You know how it is. Sometimes a song happens in 20 minutes. Sometimes it could take 8 months.
Right.
There were 4 or 5 songs on that record that I thought were great. And there were another 4 that to me they sound like demos, not production wise, but they're not what they should be. The arrangements aren't right. I don't like the lyrics. Yeah. I like half that record. Luckily for us, we had Antisocial, which basically, became it's a cover song, but we made it ours and it became our anthem. And I bet you if you asked even this today, 100 people, 92 of them would think it was our song,
right. Yeah. Trust was, that was a great band to cover. A French new wave of heavy metal band was so off of everybody's radar. Like I knew Trust, that we knew the original,
right.
but we thought
Antisocial blew up. That video got played a lot. We headlined the MTV Headbangers Ball tour based on the fact that they played the shit out of Antisocial. I think at some point it even got moved out of the Headbangers Ball ghetto and did actually get some actual MTV play for a period of weeks when the record was really selling towards the end of '88. Because we were out with Ozzy in the States and we're selling a ton of records and a ton of merch, and things were amazing. And then, we got to do that Headbangers Ball tour again with our buddies in Exodus,
right?
Out with us. And no idea how Halloween ended up on that tour. I don't remember how.
They had that big hit right around that. They had a big hit right then, I think.
Yeah, that Keeper of the Seven Keys.
I was never into it, but like they had a big hit. Makes sense.
Yeah,
MTV, right? MTV was playing the shit out of it.
What was it in the States? I don't.
I remember seeing it a lot. I wasn't on tour at that point. I think my old drummer Perry Strickland from Violence actually did some of those dates on that tour. Yeah,
he did. There's photos. I've seen some tour photos, and he's in those photos. Yeah. I mean, again, record comes out, we go out for a solid year. Tour the world again. Everywhere, headlining, biggest shows we've ever done, like headlining the NEC in Birmingham, places like that, just like
those are arenas.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the Headbangers Ball tour was mostly arenas in the States. Yeah. Sometimes we did cut down, depending on the market, but still you'd have 7,000 people there. And what I remember most from that tour is Exodus kicking our asses in a softball game on a day off. Because we were like, they challenged us, and we were like, these fucking drunks think they're gonna beat us in a game of softball. Like they can't even walk a straight line from here to there. Like, how are they gonna? And they can't play sports, right? And
like we're Yankees fans.
Yeah, we play. I'm out there on tour playing stickball every day with some of Exodus crew guys, and I'm like, I play sports. Some of our guys, we play sports. They fucking wipe the floor with us. Holy crap. Gary still to this day doesn't let me forget about it. But that tour was so much fun. Like, cause you're looking at now, it's like 5, almost 6 years since the first time we met when we played the Kabuki in '84 with Raven and Exodus. And here we are years later, like out together doing arenas, it's just like fucking just with our, like a bunch of fucking punk kids, and how did we get here? How did this happen? It's just like, the whole thing was just so mind blowing and exciting, just incredible.
Around this time, I'm not sure if I'm being chronologically correct here, but I remember you had a very visibly public wedding. I think Kerrang magazine put you on the cover of your wedding or something.
Yeah. I got married in '87, and there was pictures from that. In Kerrang.
I want to say it was a cover story or something.
I don't. No? We weren't on the cover, but
okay, gotcha. Okay, gotcha. All right. Yeah. But I remember
that shows you how silly it got.
Yeah, I mean, I was just like, whoa, it's like I'm seeing Scott Ian getting married. This is fucking crazy.
Yeah. It was.
I was just surprised it was so public. I mean, you don't normally invite one of the biggest metal magazines to your wedding, but
I didn't. They just got photos from it.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm pretty sure Gene Ambo was there, and then they got the photos from Gene to run a story.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Did they ask you for commentary? Did you comment? Was it a?
I don't remember.
Okay.
But I was really good friends with a lot of those guys. Like I mentioned before, Howard Johnson and Malcolm Domes, Gabriel Russell, like Dante Benuto. A lot of those guys, I was pretty good friends with. They were super supportive. From the earliest days of the band. Then you just see them. 3-4 times a year, seemingly. We were in the UK, and you'd go out for drinks, and they were just like us. We were all the same age, listening to the same bands. It just so happened that they were also fans of the band I was in.
Does your new wife trip out that her wedding pictures are in a metal magazine?
Back then, yeah, probably. I wasn't paying very much attention. It was kind of that, hindsight is 20/20, of course, but should have never gotten married at 22.
22. You were 22.
Actually,
wow.
I was 23.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, big mistake.
Yeah. Right. as your career as a heavy metal superstar.
Yeah, as
is
I'm like leaving
exploding.
forever.
What's that?
Yeah, later.
Right, right. Like, I'm gonna be gone for a year. I'll see you in a year.
That's exactly what it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
It lasted. I think I got served my divorce papers literally on our second anniversary.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So 89.
Yeah.
89.
Yeah.
Are you where are you on tour for State of Euphoria at this point?
By that point, I think that tour was done, and we were working on Persistence of Time.
Okay, so you're writing.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Because it was end of '89 is when I moved to LA, because we were coming out here to record Persistence of Time at Conway Studios in Hollywood, and we had a truck going out with gear. One of our crew guys was driving it across country, and it was like, oh, free move. I'm going to LA, and I put all.
But you knew you were getting divorced. Is that why you moved to LA?
Yeah. I lost everything. Like, literally, had like my clothes, and that was it. I was gone. I'm out. I'm going to California.
Yeah. When I was a young man on tour with a girlfriend, I was not very faithful. I was a terrible boyfriend. I was I was the worst boyfriend ever. Was this kind of the same? Like, is this the slutty era of Scottian?
No.
Has there ever been a slutty era of Scottian?
Yeah, in the 90s, probably. Okay. When I learned how to drink. Okay. You got to remember this.
You were pretty sober back then, right?
Yeah, like, this whole time in the 80s, there would be moments, there would be a time, but even then, like, I mean, I'm not exaggerating. I mean, the Metallica guys used to be like, they'd see me with one beer, they'd be, look out, he's got a beer, look out. Like, I mean, I really didn't drink back then. Maybe once or twice every few months, I would have a few beers and I'd get a buzz on, but it was something. I got so sick on my 18th birthday on shitty vodka that I was like sick, like alcohol poisoning sick. And for years, the smell of booze, I couldn't even smell it. It would turn my stomach. And it just so happens those are the formative years of the band. I was sober through that whole period, not because of a straight edge thing or anything like that, just because drinking, the idea of it made me sick. Then slowly but surely you get back on the horse, but I still it wasn't something I was really interested in. The first tour I could say I ever really kind of drank regularly on was Sound of White Noise. And, you're already talking 93.
Right.
I'm turning 30 that year because we had a tour manager who knew about wine. And we were still at that point where you could have proper dinner and stuff set up for you in your dressing room after the show. Like,
right.
We went through a period where we had Thanksgiving like twice a week. I'm not kidding. We would have a fucking roast turkey, and you'd walk in the dressing room, there'd be a table set up. Wow. And our tour manager knew about wine, and he knew about good wine.
Right.
Curly Jobson from Scotland. And I didn't know there was such a thing as good wine. I grew up drinking shitty totally. Jewish Manischewitz wine, which was terrible wines. I'm like, oh, this is good. Like, I didn't know wine tasted like this. And so I got into wine, but it wasn't like I was drinking wine before I went on stage during a show. Right. I'd have a few glasses of wine after, and it, I wasn't getting drunk on it really, but that kind of opened the door for me in 93 to the rest of basically the next 12 years after that, which that's when I got really, really from about 95 or 96 on, I got heavily into whiskey because of Daryl. And then I stayed on that train for a long time. When Pearl and I met in 2000, we had both come out of bad relationships, and we started out as drinking buddies. And I thought I could drink a lot back then. Like, I would easily put away a bottle of Crown, and beers and whatever else, shots. And she was like, just drink me under the table.
Wow.
And nice. I was like, I'm in love with this girl.
She's got that meatloaf liver.
And then we, even together, we partied like that for years. And we partied like that for years. And then at some point, probably around 05 or something, we were kind of like, maybe we don't need to go to the bar 7 nights a week.
Right. Right.
And we proved ourselves right, because it's, 2021 and we're still together.
Yeah. You so you get divorced. I know at some point you have like I don't know what exactly the thing is, but there's some kind of fire happens and you guys lose like a ton of your gear, right?
Yeah, there was a fire when
$100,000 worth of gear.
We were almost done. Like, we were demoing. I think we had all of Persistence pretty much written.
You're living in LA. You're living in LA.
Yeah, but I was back in New York.
Oh, okay.
Because we had our place in Yonkers. Like, we'd store our gear, and we rented this building. And
okay.
So we had all our gear there, and we had like a rehearsal room, and we had put together like a little 4-track.
Oh yeah,
studio.
everybody else is still living in New York area.
Yeah.
So you're going back to jamming, right?
So I get a call one morning. I get a call from Charlie. He's like, "Don't come today." I'm like, "Why not?" And he said, "There was a fire early this morning. The fire department's there. We can't get in. I don't know what's left. The building was on fire." I'm like, "I'm coming. What are you, fucking nuts?" I got out of bed. I ran to Grand Central Station, took the train up, and then, we kind of stood outside for hours. It was wintertime. I remember that. It was like, this was like early 1990, probably, right at the beginning of the year. And finally the fire department wraps up, and it's just like a smoking second story of this building. And then when the fire department leaves, we decide, fuck it, we're going in. Like, let's see what the fuck is in there. All our gear was in there. And we were able to climb up on the roof of the other part of the building and get in through these windows that didn't look too bad. Of course, we're being as careful as we can. No one wants to get hurt. And we get in, and we see like most of the room where the gear was stored was okay. Like, half of it burned, half of it was put out before it could get to it. Of course, there's a lot of water damage too. But we call a whole bunch of friends, and we make like a daisy chain, if that's the right word for it. Like, there's like 15 of us, and we're just handing shit out down the line, out the window, down, like everything we could grab out of the building. And we salvaged a lot of it. But I did, I had like, at the time I had like 18 Marshall 4x12s, and I lost like a dozen of those were just gone, ash. Few guitars, none of the really, like, I think I had lost some ESPs, none of my old Jacksons, luckily. My 81 Gibson V, I opened the case because the case was all scorched, and I opened the case, and the volume knobs were kind of melted, and the paint had bubbled, and it's still like that. Like, I never refinished it. It looks awesome.
Yeah.
Charlie, the whole drum kit, burned. I lost a couple of heads. Danny lost, we did lose. Probably all in all, I would say about half our shit was either burnt to a crisp, or you couldn't use it anymore. And yeah, it sucked. We were pretty bummed. But, we just put that energy into making the record, because we were just like 2-3 weeks away from starting that record, I think. So I think, if anything, no pun intended, it really lit a fire under us, because we were fucking, we were angry. We were really angry about what had happened. And I think a lot of that went into the recording of that record.
It's a dark record, other than the Joe Jackson song, which is quite upbeat and happy.
Musically, it is. Read the lyrics.
Musically, it is. The lyrics are really dark, but the
lyrics,
musically, it's quite.
At the time are all about anxiety.
Yeah,
I mean,
totally. But musically, it's quite like
that whole record. I mean, for me, lyrically, all of that record was being written when basically my relationship failed, and it was pretty much the first time in my life where I ever started to look inside rather than looking outside for things to write about. And I started to write about myself on that album, and just topics closer to home, things like Keep It in the Family, which, really for the first time in my life, I was always, of course, very aware of racism growing up as a Jewish kid in New York City. And in the 70s, it was just very much a part of the makeup of your neighborhood, your Jewish kids, Italian kids, Irish kids, black kids, everybody busted each other's balls. For me, it was never any more than ball busting. I never hated anybody. Of course, I knew people who actually really did hate Jewish kids or hate black kids, and those are kids you learn, well, I'm not going to hang out with those guys anymore, because for them, they actually want to get in fights with people. For me, if I'm busting balls with somebody and we're calling each other names, it's because I know we're going to laugh about it and then we're going to go get a hot dog at the deli. Like, it's like, didn't mean anything. But by the time the end of the 80s rolled around, a lot of that had changed, certainly in New York City, and any type of good-natured racism. I know that sounds weird, but growing up in New York in the 70s, it's, it was just a different time. 10 years later, everything had changed, and the racism I was seeing was much more prevalent than it had been before. And that's where that idea of people who never leave the block and never experience anything outside of the block they live on. Because I left the block. I had left the block 5 years earlier. I started to travel the world,
right,
and see the world. And I knew plenty of dudes who had never left the block, and they were just as sad and much of a bummer as their dads were before them, stinking of shitty beer and wearing their wife beaters and actually beating their wives and or girlfriends. And it was something that was first time really kind of my eyes opened to that, as a kid who grew up in New York City, going like, wow, man, this really sucks. And that's where Keep It in the Family came from. And just kind of writing more about myself and my experience than, comic books and Stephen King and things like that.
You, on your 30th anniversary liner notes of that album, you mention, you kind of break down all of the songs, or most of the songs, and kind of say, this is what this song is about in a nutshell. You talk about that song's about racism, a couple songs about divorce, and then you go into It's My World, and you talk about how it's about you being estranged from your mom. And the lyrics to that, there's a little block. I got this from Google, so if it's a little wrong, just bear with me. But it's got a line in there, 4 lines. My greatest fear as a kid, one which I always kept hid, was to come home from school and find my mother dead.
Yeah.
And there's just so much of this song. I mean, even all the lyrics before it, my childhood was, at age 13, my childhood was a dream, a full clout nightmare, a sight unseen. That's some heavy shit, man. That's some really heavy shit, that you had a fear of coming home as a kid to find your mother dead.
Oh, every day. Yeah. Yeah. For years. Because she had substance abuse problems. Then years later, everything's fine. My mom's about to turn 80, next year, and we get along great. But as a kid in the 70s going into the 80s, parents divorced. Mom was working a full-time job. We lived in a tiny little apartment in Queens. She'd be gone from 6:30 in the morning to 6:30 at night. I had a younger brother, 3 years younger than me, who I was basically taking care of. And just always worried, always. That fear was always in my brain that she was going to, because certainly even before the divorce, when we were living on Long Island and she was home, she wasn't working, and I would walk home from school, 4th, 5th, 6th grade, and always expect that I was gonna find her laying on the floor, because I did, but she wasn't dead. You know what I mean? So it's like the next step.
What was the substance she was like? What was she drinking?
Yeah. Drinking pills. Yeah, I didn't really know about it at the time, other than something's wrong with mom.
Right.
And alcohol is kind of easy to see because you see it around the house. I wasn't, 10, 11, and I didn't know what kind of drugs
Right.
were being used. But when
Like what Xanax or Valium?
I think at the time Valium, probably
Oh, yeah.
Quaaludes, stuff like what they used to call the diet pills, which was speed basically.
Right.
But when my parents split up, and then we were moving back to Queens, my brother, I, and my mom, but before we moved back to Queens, basically to where we had come from. We lived in Queens. Dad buys a house on Long Island. We lived there for 3 years. Parents split up. Now we're going back to Queens, basically right where we came from. But my mom goes to rehab. So my dad comes and lives with my brother and I in Queens for a few months while my mom's in rehab. We didn't know it was rehab.
Lives at your mom's house.
Yeah.
Okay.
And all we knew is mom was sick and she's in the hospital, and we would go visit her at this place where she'd just be kind of hanging around playing cards. And we had no idea why
she
was there. We just knew something was wrong.
It was fine that your parents kept it from you, like there was no need for.
Yeah. I mean, I was a smart kid. I had, of course, my ideas of why she was there, and, also had the relief of the fact that my parents split up, because it was terrible. It was just all it was fighting and screaming. And so once that was out of the picture, it was a relief for everybody. And then, my mom went through that rehab, and then
was your dad a drinker too? Were they?
No, my dad was. Thank whoever for my dad. He was. My dad was our rock. Like literally, he was the guy that, for whatever his problems were in the marriage, which is really not my business, but he was always there for my brother and I. So really kept the two of us. I give most of the credit, probably the fact that my brother and I didn't go off the deep end into drugs and whatever else we could have, because growing up where we grew up in Queens, every avenue of juvenile delinquency was open to us.
Right. And you're at that age.
Yeah.
Like that's the age where you do that shit.
Yeah. And you make a choice. And at the ripe old age of 13, when my mom was going off to work every morning and I've got a younger brother to take care of, and I had already made the choice that I'm not going to be like some guys I already know who are 13 and showing up at 7th grade and they're drunk at 9 o'clock in the morning, like drinking booze on the bus, And so, I did my share of partying in those years as a teenager. I wasn't some squeaky clean kid. I did a lot of stupid shit, but nothing ever that I was gonna end up in jail for, or that was later. I knew I had the responsibility of my brother, and that really meant everything to me.
Right.
And
it's a big responsibility.
I felt like I had the responsibility of my mom too. Like I need to make things easier for her so she could get back on her feet. And I think that's where a lot of my work ethic came from, moving forward, of course, years later, starting a band and everything else. I was always a great student in school. I just always worked really, really hard, still do. And I think a lot of it comes from that time in my life where I just felt I have no choice. I have to pick up the slack here.
Right. That's so many children of alcoholics and drug addicts become that, like they become the parent.
Right.
At a young age.
Oh, of course.
And that responsibility of, I've got to take care of mom because mom's passed out and got to make sure she gets to bed, or, it's heavy.
Yeah. It was crazy, but it's weird. I could think about it. Those years, when I think about them, were really, I had a great time, even though my parents weren't happy and all that. My mom certainly was going through a really hard time in her life. Also got married way too young. My parents were like 22 and 20 when they had me, I mean, they didn't know who the hell they were, but that's what you did in 1963.
Right.
I mean, she was having a really, really hard time. And, but I remember those years from like 75, all those years in the 70s, man, they were amazing. What an amazing place to be a kid growing up, a train ride away from Madison Square Garden,
right?
And the Palladium, and getting to see all these bands and going to the city at a young age, and just being in that New York New York of taxi driver, you know, like, I mean, I look back on those days with nothing but great memories.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, you probably got a little bit more freedom because your mom's.
Yeah.
You know, like,
And, you know, again,
I mean, you're like
I
14,
understood
15,
that.
like going into the big city, and she's like, all right, see you
And
later.
I understood that. I don't know if we touched on this last time, but I knew if I got good grades, which wasn't hard for me, that keeps your parents off your back.
Right.
And so I could do whatever I want as long as it doesn't affect my schoolwork.
Right.
And school came really easy to me. So that was never an issue. So I never had a problem staying out late or going to the city or doing whatever I want, because there was nothing my mom could say to me. They're like, well, you're failing this. Like, that was never an issue. I always had a job because I always wanted money, because without my mom didn't have money to give me. So I had to work. And then I could go to Bleecker Bob's in the Village and buy records, you know. I mean, so I was very responsible in that way, but in the selfish way of, because I want to get to do cool shit. And if I want to do cool shit, this is how I can open that door for myself. And that was like, don't be a fucking problem for your parents. And then you could get away with anything you want. That's the secret to being a teenager. Don't be an idiot.
Right.
And then you can get away with everything.
When you're writing this record, though, are you estranged from your mom because of all that stuff, and you're kind of processing it for the first time?
No, this was different. I was leaving for California, and my mom hated the fact that I was leaving New York. And I met a girl in California. She was living with me in New York, and then we were moving together back to LA. And my mom was dead set against that idea. And we were at Electric Lady mixing Persistence of Time. And I met my mom for lunch, and we were like walking up 8th Street. And she said to me, I'm just going to be on, because my mom is a very honest, like, Jewish lady. And I can't do the accent so well anymore, but, you know, she's like, just straight up. She said, I would rather you walk out into the street over there and get hit by a bus and wake up with amnesia and have no memory of this girl in California or anything, than you leave for California. And I'm like, you're kidding, right? You're joking when you say hit by a bus, you're kidding. It's like metaphorically. She's like, no, I would rather you get hit by a bus and wake up and not remember any of this. And I was like, for real? I'm like, you need to take it back. You need to say apologize to me. And she wouldn't apologize to me.
Oh, geez.
And I basically told her to go fuck herself. And I walked down the block and I walked back into Electric Lady. So that's kind of when, and I talked to my mom for 2 years after that.
She's still on substances at this point? Like, she's still drinking? No, she's all done with that. Wow, this is sober.
She's just a protective Jewish mom.
Right.
And her firstborn was moving 2,500 miles away.
Yeah, probably fearing that she's never going to see you.
Yeah, exactly. So, so I didn't talk to her for 2 years, and it was my dad. You know, he gave me he's like, you really need to talk to your mom. Someday if you ever talk to her again, someday she's not going to be here anymore, and that's going to be something you'll find very hard to live with. And of course, he made total sense. And I reopened the door. I wrote my mom a letter, and then that kind of reopened the door. And and then, I wouldn't say things were perfect instantly, but from that time we were able to, actually have a real relationship, probably for the first time in our lives as two adults,
Yeah. But during that time, you felt compelled to write those lyrics. To get that, you needed to get that out. You needed to share this.
I never talked about that
fucked up part of your childhood with, through music.
Yeah. Like I said, it was the first time on that record where I really felt like I needed to express stuff that I hadn't talked about with anyone before. I wasn't that kind of a guy. Like, I didn't sit around and commiserate and who gives a fuck? Nobody needs my shit. And I found a way to be able to express myself through words.
Has she ever read those lyrics?
probably, because in my first book, I go deep in. I mean, she was, that first book I didn't write till what, I don't know, 6-7 years ago.
Yeah.
So she was, she was pretty upset about the chapter or chapters where I talk all about everything we're talking about right now, but even way more in depth. Like, I was writing it, and she was, but there was no argument. It's truth, and it's, importantly, it was my truth, and I had to talk about it, because if I'm gonna write a book about myself, you can't write a book about yourself and not be honest about shit. And honest about, I talk a lot about myself in that book. That's negative. I didn't shy away from anything.
Yeah.
And because you have to be, if you're not going to be honest, why write a book? And but we got past that too. So yeah, at some point she was definitely aware of those lyrics and everything I was feeling about her for decades. And we got past that too, the writing and the publishing of the book. And we get along great.
Is there a lot of fallout when you write a book? Like, is there a lot of bruised egos that come back at you?
Well, after the book is done, the publisher has their lawyers read it. And then they come back to you with notes. And they make all the suggestions of things they either think you should take out or names that need to be changed, because you're leaving yourself open for a lawsuit.
Right.
And I fucking hated that so much, because I'm like, but this is the truth. This is everything I'm saying here happened for good or for bad. There's no lie here. And they said, it doesn't matter, especially when you're talking about people who aren't public figures.
Right.
They have an expectation of privacy.
Right.
And you're telling a story about them that if they haven't put out there publicly, they can litigate, they can sue you. And
right. And when you're a public figure like you and I,
right,
anything goes. You don't really, you kind of lose that. Like, you don't have that anymore.
There are things I had to take out about
yourself,
not about myself, but about ex-wives.
Right.
And other women that I had shit going on with in the 90s. I just changed names.
Right. Okay.
There are definitely a bunch of names changed. I don't think I ever got too deep as far as talking about other band members, or I felt like I was honest about shit that happened with, let's say, Neil Turbin, or and what happened with Danny Looker, in that whole scenario, and or other guys that talking about how Frankie has a temper, or any of that kind of stuff. I didn't really tell any stories necessarily that weren't mine to tell about other bands, to get other bands or band members of other bands in trouble.
Right.
Believe me, I've got, as I'm sure you do.
Oh my God. Yeah. 7
books of those.
Shit that would melt your eyeballs.
Yeah. So, which of course you could of course jokingly say, well, that's the book I can't write until I retire, or of course
until I'm dead.
Write. Yeah. But yeah, I know. I don't think I think I was very fair. Look, I know people were upset. I'm pretty.
Was Charlie ever upset? Like, I'm trying to think of like dudes who are close to you. Like no.
No, because was he gonna be upset because I say he's an amazing songwriter and an incredible drummer?
Right.
You didn't praise me enough.
I expected high praise, more than that.
I didn't get a whole chapter. Yeah, no, I don't think. I'm sure. I would guess if someone probably sat down with Danny Spitz and said, what do you think about what Scott said? I'm sure he probably wouldn't be thrilled. But I'm telling the truth about him being why and how he was fired from the band at the time. I talk all about Joey being, I really, really, I think, poured my heart out. That was probably almost in a weird way harder than writing the stuff about my mom. Because, when I was writing that stuff, Joey's back in the band.
Right.
And now I'm writing about the past. I'm writing about 1991, 1992. And
things falling apart and bringing
really
up
talking about
wounds.
how where I was as a human, really thinking about it, putting myself over a period of months, putting myself back in those shoes and really understanding that, yeah, it really had nothing to do with Joey at the time. Joey became my scapegoat, and I was just such an angry person back then. And I was angry at my mom. I was angry at relationships. I was angry at myself, and everything was scaring the shit out of me. I had spent the 10 years of my life on a fucking bus in a whirlwind. I didn't even know who I was. You know, I had already been once divorced and about to be. And I was in a failed second relationship now by that point in 92. And I hated myself at that point in time. And so much of that I took out on him because I was writing stuff, Persistence of Time specifically, that I felt was, you know, like you mentioned, In My World, or some things on that record that I couldn't sing it. You know, I'm not the singer. I couldn't sing it. And so much of my frustration of it, my emotions and my feelings getting lost in translation.
Right.
When Joey's singing it. And
is that you at the beginning of the song saying that?
That's me at the beginning of the song. Yeah. But me taking out my shit on him. But it wasn't a singular, it wasn't just me who decided Joey's being fired. It was very much me and Charlie and Frankie and Danny Spitz at the time. We were all very much on the same page. It wasn't just, I didn't just say, I'm firing Joey. It wasn't some unilateral decision. But certainly my treatment of him back then, you know, and I apologize to him for it in writing and in person, you know, just, hey, you know, I should have never have been that way. You know, I took shit out on you that you never deserved and never did anything to deserve. And, you know, I apologize for that. And, you know, I mean, that's what happens when you eventually, hopefully you grow up and you actually do understand who you are. It took me a long time. I met Pearl in 2000 and it took me all those years, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2006, 7, us being a couple and me even just being able to find out who I was as a person with the help of a woman who actually loved me back, you know, and suddenly I was like, wow, I do have something to give. I'm not this fucking hard man. I wrote it in a song called Catharsis on our Volume 8 record. All these years I've been the hard man. All these years it's been so hard, man. And really it was like, it didn't necessarily need to have been that, but it's because I didn't know who the fuck I was. So everything, you know, I was angry, and anger comes from fear. And I never went to therapy for any of this. You just figure shit out in your life, and you just hopefully learn how to
I needed to go to therapy.
Learn how to be an empathetic person and care about other people. And I didn't care about other people for a very long time.
Do you feel like this was kind of that record was released kind of during a change in the world as well, you know, musically, you know, we're going into the Gulf War,
right?
You know, Metallica's slowing down, Primus and Faith No More are starting to pop, and thrash metal's kind of, you know, even around the Bay Area, like, you know, thrash bands started suddenly doing slap bass, and I was like, what? Wait, don't do that. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you mentioned the Gulf War. We were on tour with Maiden, and I think we were in Toronto in catering, eating dinner, and Nico came walking in. He goes, well, mates, we're at war. I'm like, huh? And he goes, they just started dropping bombs. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Like, that's how I found out.
Right. The first real war that our generation had ever experienced.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of shit was changing, you know, everything for me personally, professionally. I wasn't worrying about the career of the band in that moment because from a professional point of view, things are great. 1991 was the biggest year of Anthrax in our history. At that point, we started the first 3 years of the first 3 months in 91. We were out with Maiden in North America.
Wow.
We ended 90. Sick. We ended 90. The last 3 months of 90, we were with Maiden in Europe. So we basically spent 6 months with Maiden.
Wow.
Right after Persistence came out. And then the summer of 91 was Clash of the Titans.
What Maiden album is this? Bruce is still in the band.
Yeah, the
Okay.
one with oh my gosh, the one with
Seventh Son?
Al Gunner. No, the one after Seventh Son. Not Fear of the Dark, the one after that, which now I'm totally drawing a blank like an idiot on it. Anyway, I'll think of it. But anyway, still arenas sold out everywhere. And then summer of 91 is Clash of the Titans. So you got us, Slayer, and Megadeth.
Woo. God
right?
damn.
You
Yeah.
put 1 + 1 + 1 did equal 3 because we're selling out arenas and sheds everywhere. Because we didn't want to do that tour at first. They did it in Europe first.
What? Why
Yeah.
not?
In the fall of, I think they went out like in
Right. They had Testament or somebody or Suicidal.
Testament and Suicidal
Yeah.
opened for Megadeth and Slayer. And then when we were out with Maiden, like around February, March of 91, Johnny Z calls and says, so we've got this offer to do the Clash of the Titans US. And I said, well, what is it going to be? Those 4 bands and add us? He goes, no, it would be a triple headline with you, Slayer, and Megadeth. And the opener is undecided at this point. We'll figure it out. And we passed. We said no, because we felt we were already selling 8,000-10,000, some places even more. We were already selling that many tickets in places. And we kind of felt like, why are we going to go team up and split the money, and when we could just
play second some nights.
Yeah, we could just do this ourselves with an opening band and play our 90-minute or 2-hour show and do whatever we want. And nothing against Slayer and Megadeth. We
right.
friends with all those guys. But from a business standpoint, it seemed weird that we were doing that. And then, we get word back from Johnny and our agent, who obviously had already made the decision that, like, this is the right decision because they're pushing. But the more conversations we had, the more it made sense, because they're like, well, what are you going to do? You can't go. You're not going to Europe because we've got a headline run. And do you really want to go out against Slayer and Megadeth? Because they're doing it no matter what. So do you want to go out against that? And there's also this other tour going and this tour going. And
right.
The more we talked about it, the more it was like, well, you know what? It's going to be fun, certainly. So fuck it. Let's do it. And thank God we weren't fucking idiots. And we listened to our manager at the time, because it was the fucking best. It was the fucking best. One of the best tours we've ever done. Most fun, sickest crowds. We headlined Madison Square Garden,
right.
On that run. And it was incredible. And then after that, the end of 91, we did the Anthrax Public Enemy Primus tour.
Right.
For months, and then took that to Europe the beginning of 92. So that like 14-month period, or even longer. So let's say from October 90 to March of 92.
Wow. Yeah. That's just insane. Yeah.
Commercially successful. We were doing better, selling more tickets, more shirts, making more money than we'd ever thought we could in our lives. And it was unbelievable. And having a blast doing it. Touring with we did that Public Enemy tour, and we had Primus on it. And that was the same year as the first Lollapalooza. And we were like, they call that alternative? No, what we're doing is alternative.
Right.
This is a fucking alternative bill.
I saw that when you guys played Oakland. I don't know if you remember this, but there was the huge fire was happening, burning down all of Oakland. We drove there anyway and went to the show. I can't remember. I don't know if it was Primus. I want to say it was like Dirty Kids or
Young Black Teenagers.
That's what it was. Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah. And Primus too.
Yeah, Young Black Teenagers.
Okay.
Primus.
Okay, gotcha.
PE and then us, and then the big end.
That was sick. It was so.
Yeah, we thought we were going to cancel that night because of the fire, and Johnny Z was on the phone with Bill Graham. And, it's sold out.
Right. It was fucking slammed. Henry J. Kaiser, fucking 8,000 seaters.
Yeah. And Bill Graham said, I'm not fucking canceling. No fucking way. He goes, are you kidding me? He goes, mark my word. He goes, you'll have less than 10% no shows because of the fucking fire. He goes, their fans are going to come out. And he was absolutely right. No, right. I think there was like 40 no shows or something the night of that fucking fire. The hills are burning, and there's like the sickest mosh pit of all time. Like,
and when you say the hills are burning, like, just to give people a little perspective, because I stood outside the Henry J. Kaiser watching this. I mean, you're talking about 20 miles of an entire mountainside just burning, homes burning, like
it was snowing ash. Ash was coming down.
This is a few miles away from the fucking thing, and everybody still showed up, and we all were just like, what the fuck, this is crazy.
I remember seeing Bill Graham came to the dressing room after the show, a big smile on his face. It's like, you see, you had a great fucking show. What do you think? And we were like, dude, it was fucking amazing, unbelievable. Yeah. So that whole period for us professionally was mind blowing. And
Bring the Noise collab has already happened at this point too, right?
Yeah, because we had recorded it and we shot the video that summer of '91 when we were on Clash. We had a night off in Chicago.
Oh wow!
And Chuck and Flav came to Chicago and we shot that in Chicago. And then it was when we were in Salt Lake on Clash. And Chuck flew out because the NME was doing a cover story on us. And Chuck flew out to do an interview and the photo shoot. And it was pretty much right then and there we decided we should go play shows. We should take this further than like Run DMC and Aerosmith never went out and played. We should fucking let's do what nobody's done before. And he goes, when and where, Scott? When and where? And it was as simple as that.
Were you guys already friends at that point, or I don't know?
Yeah, we met like in '87, probably. I'm sure you knew Scott Koenig, who we recently passed. Yeah, and Scott was very instrumental in that whole thing happening. Scott was a great friend of ours, and he worked at Rush Management, and early on at the Def Jam office, and he's the guy that introduced Slayer to Rick Rubin.
It's crazy.
It's because of Scott. Scott had a desk at Def Jam, and he had a Kerrang magazine open on his desk. This is back in '87, and it was the feature on Donington that year. And I used to wear my Public Enemy T-shirt on stage, and I'm wearing it on stage in front of 80,000 people, and there's a photo of me, and Chuck happens to see that photo in the metal magazine of me, and he sees that, and he's like, oh my God, because he already knew. He's from New York. He knew of Anthrax and all that. And he's like, wow, I had no idea those guys were fans. That's amazing. And Scott's like, oh, they love you. They're fucking like, Scott, you're his favorite band, meaning me. Scott Koenig said that to Chuck. And so then that December of '87, I believe, is when we met. Chuck came, we were playing 2 nights at the Beacon Theater in New York, and Chuck came to those shows. And that's the first time we actually met. And became friends ever since. Yeah.
I mean, those early Public Enemy records are so fucking pissed. Yeah. I mean, they were I remember feeling intimidated listening to those records.
Yeah, dude. Nation of Millions is, could be safe to say, might be my favorite album of all time, not just rap.
Right.
It's one of those I have a few go-tos, and there's probably 5 records I could argue about all day long on which is my favorite of all time, but Nation of Millions is certainly in there. But so especially everything was amazing for us in that period into '92. Personally, I was a fucking wreck, and because of second relationship going, the girl I was living with, I was going to marry in California. I already knew that was a
fiance
that was falling apart. Yeah. We ended up getting married in '92, which again, idiot, huge mistake. And because that will solve your problems.
Right, I was going to say that.
And the song Only on Sound of White Noise is directly, reflects exactly the first line of that song. Everything is perfect. Everything is sick. That's it. That was me in a nutshell, because my career was on fucking fire in a good way.
Right.
And everything in my personal life was on fire, like a fucking trash heap in a bad way. So, and all that came out on Sound of White Noise. And lucky for me, or in a weird way, unlucky for John, was that he was also had just come out of a long-term relationship and was kind of in a really bad place because of it. And now he joins Anthrax. So the two of us had a lot to commiserate and talk about when we were now writing lyrics together. I had a partner that I was working with, and which was the greatest thing in the world for me at the time. And so all the lyrics on that record, for me, the lyrics on that album, other than the last one on For All Kings, I think I'm most proud of it in my life. Because just the way John and I suddenly you're like, you don't know if it's going to work.
Mhm.
John's a singer. He's got a point of view. He writes his own lyrics.
Right.
Has for years.
Doesn't need you.
I'm not going to tell him you're singing this. That's not how this is going to work. And
which is how it worked before, right?
right. And it couldn't have worked better when John came in. It just the bouncing off one another. It just worked out so well. You know,
How does Joey Belladonna get fired? Like, who do you guys have a band meeting? Facts.
Just to let you know, I have to leave at 1 to pick up my son.
Okay.
I know we're going super long again. But,
all good, yeah.
Yeah. How did it happen? He lived in upstate New York, and I was in LA, and we did Married with Children. That was in like around March or April of '92 is when we shot that show, and that's the last thing we did with Joey in the band.
Are tensions high when you're doing the TV show?
I don't think.
Are you just fucking stoked to be doing Married
we were
with Children? It's the best fucking show ever. Yeah.
Again, and what a way to like kind of cap off a year and a half. Yes. And now we're on like our favorite TV show.
Right. And
hanging out with Ed O'Neill
is so fucking hot.
It was insane. It was insane.
She's devastatingly fucking hot.
It was kind of like actually the calm before the storm, because we already knew what was happening. We already knew we were leaving. We weren't re-signing with Island Records. We were going to go to Elektra. Elektra knew we were making a change, and they were still driving a fucking truckload of money up to our houses. Wow. They were like, whatever you want to do.
Holy shit.
We want to be in the Anthrax business.
Metallica's on Elektra. Like, it seems like a total natural place to be.
Steve Rabowski, who was signing us, like, is the guy that signed Soundgarden. He was just a great dude, brilliant mind. Like, anyway, but yeah, Married with Children, unbelievable. Quick tangent story about that. When you do a show like that, you get there on Monday, you do a read-through, Tuesday read-through. By Wednesday, you start kind of getting in your places on the set so they could do the camera blocking and all that. And there was a scene in the show originally where Christina takes one of the band members by the hand and walks him upstairs to have sex.
Nice.
That was me.
Ah, you bastard.
If that was the last thing I ever did, if I was like, I retire, I'm done. Right. Like, after this nothing better is ever going to happen than in the fake world of TV. I'm having sex with Kelly Bundy.
That is fucking incredible.
So
how has it become you? Why isn't it Joey Belladonna?
Lucky. I don't know. They decided, let's have the bald guy be, maybe because I was the worst looking one or something. Who knows? But it was me in the script, and I was, oh, thank you. Like, just
you must have just been like, I jerked off to her so many fucking times. If I would have read that in the script, I would have been like, I would have fucking splooged right there. I'd be like, are you fucking kidding me?
When people see this, I'm a fucking hero. That's it.
I'm the king. I nailed Kelly Bundy.
Best thing ever, right? So, and you know, we've read the scene so many times, and we've walked through it on the set, and you walk up the stairs.
So you actually did the scene with her, like practicing it.
You walk up those back stairs of the Bundy living room like you're going upstairs. There's nothing back there. It just goes into an empty thing.
Right.
But Thursday, we were on the set, and we're doing our read-through and stuff. And where's the... But I don't stop and say anything there. We just go through. They had a different line for me and a different thing to do. And I was like, what the fuck? So I go over to one of the producers and I said, hey, what happened to that scene that was in there where Kelly takes me upstairs to have sex? He goes, yeah, you know, we all thought it was really funny, but Christina came into the office after rehearsal last night, and she specifically pointed out that scene and said, you know, I know my character's a slut, but she's not that much of a slut.
Right.
Like, you're like, damn it.
You're like, what did I do wrong?
So yeah, but at least I did get to rehearse.
Hey, you got to rehearse it. That's fucking. You got to hold Kelly Bundy's hand. That's pretty fucking.
But yeah, we had the time of our lives that week, and they were great. We actually took her and David Faustino to see Metallica at the Forum, and
was that Al Bundy?
We walk in and like literally like a whole section at the Forum starts chanting Bud, 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 Bud.
Oh, Bud. Okay.
I mean, that show was huge then.
Dude, massive.
And David got kind of tipsy that night and then come in the next day and he was hungover. And one of the producers actually told us, please don't take them out to any more metal shows this week. They need to like work. But yeah, so that was kind of like a little bit of a reprieve. But, you know, if you notice, and I don't think it had nothing to do with it at the time, but if you notice, Joey actually doesn't sing on that. It's in My World is the song we play in their living room.
Right, which is wild.
So you see me doing the spoken intro, and then there's a long instrumental section before the vocals come in.
Yes.
And it actually stops before the vocals. And that was really only because that for the producers, that part worked for them. They needed it to be X amount of time and they wanted it to be a certain vibe for Smashing. And really, it wasn't like we said, find something where Joey's not singing. It wasn't the case at all. The producers picked that. It could have been anything on the record. And we would have just said, sure, whatever you want to do. But yeah, it was right after that. Everyone went their separate ways. We all go home because we knew what was happening. But I guess, you know, what could Joey be thinking other than we're going to take a break now and then we'll start working on a new record. But yeah, then Johnny Z called him and broke the news to him, like what was happening. And, you know, from what Johnny
was the manager at that point.
Yeah, Johnny was still the manager.
Right.
And yeah, you know, he took it as well as you could take something like that. You know, he was obviously not happy about being asked to not be in the band anymore. And it, you know, and it was not a decision. I know, you know, I don't want anyone to ever think it's something we took lightly. You know, it was 2 years. It was like 2 years of us. We just felt like we were changing musically. On Persistence of Time, we weren't the band we were on Among the Living anymore. Persistence to me has more to do with Sound of White Noise than it does with State of Euphoria. I hear the music changing.
Totally.
I hear how it's changing.
Lyrics are becoming more socially conscious and
just everything. And it just wasn't, you know, it wasn't like we were looking for a Tom Araya.
Right.
That's not where we wanted to go. That's not Anthrax. And we were working with and it also wasn't like we weren't trying with Joey. We did on 2 records and it wasn't working. And that's when I say it wasn't a unilateral decision, it was all of us.
Yeah.
Felt like it needs to change. Otherwise we're not going to want to make records anymore. And
I thought John Bush was a smart move. You know, I remember just hearing about it and going, dude, John Bush I saw Armored Saint open for Metallica on Ride the Lightning, and they damn near blew Metallica off the fucking stage. Like he in particular was fucking incredible. Like amazing. Yeah,
well, people know the story. Metallica asked John to join in the early days.
Can you fucking, you know, like that blows. There's 2 things that blow my mind about that. But the biggest thing is that James was so insecure that he wasn't good enough to be the fucking singer that they actually considered asking John Bush. I mean, that just fucking blows my mind. I mean, the course of history would have changed forever.
Yeah. And, you know, and people are like, hey, John Bush is crazy. He said no to that. It's like, well, Armored Saint was actually bigger than Metallica.
Right.
They were a bigger band.
Dude, so, I'm not even joking when I say like they fucking nearly blew them off the stage. Like fucking crowd response. I mean, like people fucking crazy about him. He was awesome.
We loved John. We were friends with John for years, and we loved his voice. We thought like, you know, we were like has this ability. He's an amazing singer, but he also has an aggression that we were looking for.
Yeah.
Now, but still being a singer. Anthrax, we always wanted a singer. Like I said, we were never going to suddenly make a left turn and have, you know, like a guy like Tom. And I love Tom and I love Slayer, but that's not what we were looking for Anthrax. John was the perfect kind of in between of he's a fucking great.
Yeah. I think too, even though like I think people who aren't very knowledgeable about thrash metal would actually be surprised that, the singers are still singing. Most, Dance with the Dead in My Dreams.
Yeah.
He's, even like Master of Puppets, or certainly with Belladonna. Maybe not necessarily Paul Bailoff, but like, Megadeth for sure was like, there's fucking singing happening. Yeah. It's just gritty and heavy and, doing all kinds of other crazy shit. But, I know what you mean, that you always wanted a singer. Somewhere along the way, it kind of went, no melody, more punk rock or more hard death metal or whatever.
Right, exactly.
But at that sweet point, you guys still had melody.
Yeah, I mean, there was that time when you think about it, when like Kronos or like Venom or Slayer were the most extreme thing. And then you put that in context with Cannibal Corpse 10 years later, and it's like Tom sounds like, fucking Michael Bublé compared to that.
Like, right. I gotta say, James Hetfield has called Only the perfect song, and it really is fucking awesome song.
Thank you. He said it to us downstairs at the Warfield on that tour.
You must have just fucking been like over the moon about that. I mean, especially coming off of a new singer, you might have been a little, thinking of, a major change like that. Like, I hope that everybody accepts the new singer. I hope that everybody accepts the new. I don't know if that's what your mindset was, but I'm sure to hear that.
I was, let's say, I was actually aggressively positive.
Okay.
About what we were doing. But at the same time, I'd be lying if there wasn't that little other bands have tried and failed.
Right.
I'm a big David Lee Roth guy, and then I love some of the Hagar stuff, but it wasn't what I wanted out of my, I looked at Sabbath as one who succeeded. They made two amazing records with Ronnie at that time.
Right. Deep in their career too. Like,
yeah. So, I tried to like look at that as an example for us that, that it can be done. And we had a proven guy who was a great singer. And I looked at it as, hey, we're taking something that's here and something that's here. We're putting it together and it's going to get here. And I also felt like we had made the record and we had the songs with Only and Room for One More and Black Lodge. I thought with those three songs, I felt like we were going, because remember, Megadeth had already, with Symphony of Destruction, they had like a multi-platinum record at this point.
Right.
Let's not even talk about Metallica at this point. Black Album. That's another planet. But with us, Megadeth and Slayer, Megadeth had now reached new heights that us and Slayer hadn't. We were all like right around here, selling between gold and platinum, and then Megadeth went like this.
Right.
They went more commercial. And I felt like we're right in that path. Listen to these songs, Only and Room for One More, and then Black Lodge, the ballad.
Right.
And we're on Elektra, and they're throwing a shit ton of money at it, at radio, at videos, more so than we have a machine behind us now like we've never had before in our lives. I literally, in my mind, I thought we were going to sell 3 million copies of that record.
Wow.
I literally thought like, this is it. We're going to where Metallica, maybe not as big, because Black Album, like I said, that's another planet. But I thought we would at least do what Megadeth did, if not more than what Megadeth did. I
love hearing this.
It all fell apart.
I love hearing this because, I definitely believe that every successful musician needs to have a little bit of self-delusion. Like, you have to fucking plow ahead through so much fucking bullshit. You have to have this, and certainly when you're going out to sell it and promote it, like, it just, and I'm not saying like you're thinking about it, I think it's unconscious, like you have to fucking make it succeed.
Yeah. But why wouldn't I think that way?
Right.
Because where our career was, we already had a platinum record.
Right.
And now I'm looking at our peers and I look at what Dave did and I'm like, hey, he sold 2 million records with that record because of that song.
Yeah.
Like what? Well, we're right in there. we could definitely do what's happening there. We've got the record. We made the right album for the right time coming out in 1993. There was no reason for me to not think that way.
What did that record do in the end?
It still hasn't gone platinum. It's somewhere.
But it went gold.
Oh, went gold immediately.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Yeah. So
We started out headlining on that tour, playing massive venues. The first leg of that tour, summer of '93, we had White Zombie and Quicksand opening for us.
Wow.
And we watched White Zombie because that summer is when
Thunder Beavis and Butthead
on Beavis and Butthead. And we literally watched, they saved that song for last every night, of course. And like we literally watched that band go leapfrog us, which was great, you know.
Right.
They were buds, and it was fucking awesome. Well-deserved success, you know. That summer, and then Europe, and our first time in South America. We actually started the tour. Our first time in South America was the first shows of Sound of White Noise. It was fucking huge, and for all intents and purposes, things were great. And then we just fucking blew it, man. There's probably, you could ask 100 people why things went wrong for a lot of bands in the 90s, us being one of those bands. And being a guy on the inside of our specific path, now we're going into the end of 93, going into 94. And grunge is blowing up. Sure. But we always looked at it as, well, Soundgarden just sounds like a fucking metal band, but it's a little bit left of center,
right?
And Alice in Chains is a fucking metal band.
They were opening on Clash of the Titans. Yeah.
They covered Armored Saint before anyone even, they used to do Armored Saint covers in their set before anyone even knew who Alice in Chains was.
Wow,
like Jerry told us that, when we first met him. And anyway, long story short, We're Ready to Come only was the first single. It fucking did great. Album goes gold immediately. And We're Ready to Come with Room for One More on that summer tour with White Zombie. And Elektra comes to us and says, we think you should go with Black Lodge. That's the big one. That's the one that's going to pull in an audience you've never had before. It's the most mainstream song you've ever had. That's the one we want to go with next. We got Mark Pellington, who directed the Jeremy video. Right. The biggest video on MTV.
Hell of money on a video.
$500,000.
Oh my God.
And we get the biggest director.
$500,000
and he's going to do the direct. He's going to direct the video for Black Lodge, and all this shit is getting thrown at us. And we're like, yeah, but we get it. We get all of that. But that song should be the third single. That should come out in the fall.
You want to stay hard. You want to stay with the hard shit.
Yeah, we're out on a summer tour. Room for One More is a fucking banger. Let's keep rolling on that through the tour. And then let's have Black Lodge for October. It's a darker song. You want to call it the ballad, but it's the darkest lyrics on the record. And we'll have the big video and all of that and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, no, all guns blazing now. Mark Pellington won't be available then. Blah, 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 blah. Our heads are fucking spinning. We don't know what to do. We've never been in this situation before, having a label that's literally so gung-ho to do all of this shit for you. And we go with their vibe and say, all right, fuck it. We'll just do Room for One More later on down the thing. And then Mark Pellington gets held up with some documentary that he's making, and we don't follow up only. And there's this huge void. By the time we do Black Lodge, it doesn't connect. Nobody gives a shit. We do Room for One More early, like in 94, and it's done. The album, it's done. The album's just, it's done. No, but we ended up that tour in 94 out in the summer of 94 with Fight with Halford opening for us, right? Playing smaller venues than we started the tour on. And meanwhile, I'm like seeing Rob every day. Is there anything we can do? Are you okay? You got everything?
Right, of course.
How is Halford going on? It doesn't make any sense, right? I mean, we were friends already, but still, just want to make sure everything is. But we knew, we were very aware of that. That record started here, and a year later, we're ending here. And it's like, What happened?
Right.
like Elektra was sure. They're like, you double platinum on this. You've got, without a doubt, blah, blah, and they were spending money like they were going to sell a double platinum record, which of course, then when it's stuck at like 700,000, the taps got shut off pretty quick.
Right.
Going into the next album, which contractually they had to make because we had a 3-album deal and we had them.
And the fact that we're even debating that 700,000 records is a failure is hilarious nowadays.
Right. But it was
back then. You're right. Like 94, that was considered a failure, especially after.
And what they had spent. Yeah, it was a big time.
That's always the balance that no one really understands. That like if they spent $5 million to get to 700,000, or if they spent 500,000 and it went to 8 million, then
Right. So, and the other thing that we had working against us was the whole regime that signed us got fired.
Gotcha.
During the touring of Sound of White Noise, and then after that going into what was to become Stomp 442 in that time period, 94, 95, Bob Krasnow, who had run the label forever, old school record man from the 70s, right? Like R&R guy, everybody gone. Time Warner cleaned house basically. And they brought in Sylvia Rohn, who had been running East West at the time. And
which was a successful label, had Pantera,
right, but she had nothing to do with the breaking of them. Her success was like they had a huge thing with En Vogue. They were massive back then.
Okay. Right.
Sylvia was very much
these Anthrax guys don't sound like En Vogue.
A metal person. And our manager at this point, we weren't with Johnny anymore. We were with a guy named Steve Barnett who managed AC/DC. And I knew Sylvia because AC/DC was on East West. And he goes, "Oh, this is great. Sylvia's running Elektra now." And he goes in to sit down and have a meeting about the plans going forward for the next album. And he said he walked in and she had our contract sitting on the desk. And she's like, "Steve, I never would have made this deal. Never would have signed this band to this deal. What are we going to do?" And he's like, "Well, you have to make the record because, you signed the deal." Basically, going into that next album on Elektra, the Stomp 442 record, they did the absolute bare minimum, which was still pretty great, but it was, nobody cared. Like, it died. And on that record, we went out, we were playing clubs. We were back in the clubs that we were in at the beginning of like the Among the Living tour. All of a sudden, 8 years later, what? Like, what? Certain parts of the world we were still doing great in, but in America and most of Europe.
Is that the Life of Agony tour?
Yeah,
Life of Agony was opening. Yeah,
like a lot of those runs we had around that time. We had LOA. We took that run in '95. I think we had LOA Deftones.
Okay. Oh wow.
Out with us in the States.
That nobody. Nobody knew the Deftones, so this is
right.
Right.
But we had Deftones out. I remember there was a big argument because Deftones were like, "Well, why are we going on first?" And LOA was like, "Well, we're not going on first." And Guy Oseary, who signed the Deftones, and so there, I guess some kind of a compromise was made where, like, on the East Coast, east of the Mississippi, LOA would be in the middle, west of the Deftones. Anyway, but yeah, we had some great packages out back then with lots of cool bands who ended up going on to be. I remember we had a run that Godsmack was opening for us. It always seemed like we had these bands opening for us that 2 years later were massive. And we just kept. Our ship was just slowly sinking.
I got to say, we'll end it with this because I know you got to go. But I remember there was around this time, and I still kept up on the magazines, and I remember reading, I always followed Anthrax. And I remember around this time, you did an interview with Metal Edge magazine with
Jerry Miller?
I don't want to.
Paul Gargano?
Yes. No. He was a blonde dude who ended up going on to work at Roadrunner Records eventually. I can't fucking, I'm totally brain farting. I've been trying to think of it all morning. But I just remember the name and I remember reading it, and you were talking about this period, and you know, like part of the interview somehow went into, you know, like what went wrong, and you know, they were asking you like, man, you were like playing 7,000 seats, now you're playing to 400 people in Washington D.C. Like, what's going on? And I remember, and I just want to give you props for this. This isn't even a question, but you were so brutally honest in your answer, and it was so fucking refreshing to read. And you just like, you were like, we fucked up, like we made some bad decisions, and you kind of went through a short list of what it was. And I don't even know if you remember what I'm talking about here, but like,
I don't, but I do remember that. I never felt like I needed to really point the blame elsewhere than just, you know, look, you can't, every record is not going to be among the living. Every record is not going to, even if we may feel it is, you know, I still think Sound of White Noise is one of the best things we've ever done.
Yeah.
But I'm not that blind and that ignorant or stupid to think that we didn't lose half our audience when Joey was gone. 100%. I know a lot of people hated Bring the Noise, that we did that and we made a big deal. We didn't just do it and put it out. We fucking did it.
It was
we went on tour, and I bet we lost a big part of our audience at that time. It wasn't fucking metal.
It was kind of viewed as a little cartoony.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, just I'm not blind to any of that. We went into all of that shit with our eyes open, knowing the risks we were taking doing these things, and always willing to roll the dice because creatively it's where our hearts were. And you know, I'll never apologize for any of it, but at the same time, I will certainly admit that, yeah, we fucked up. We made mistakes, you know, but when you're in it, you got to follow your heart. What else can you do?
Right.
You know?
And I just wanted to say to you, but from, you know, I had been a fan of Anthrax, and I was crazy about SOD and Among the Living and some of the earlier stuff and later stuff and everything. But like reading that interview, and I remember it because I was just so blown away to listen to an artist just acknowledge their failings in a fucking brutally honest way, and then say, I'm going to keep going on, but you know, we're just going to keep on doing it. And like, that's the day that I became I was an Anthrax fan till then. I became a Scott Ian fan
right on
that day, you know, and I, you know, for whatever reason, that interview has stuck with me and, you know, just stayed in my memory banks because you don't really read that from people. And, you know, I just wanted to say fucking kudos to you for, you know, keeping it real like that and being so honest. And, you know, here you are all these years later, and you're still fucking here crushing it. And it's awesome to see.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, if, you know, I'm not kidding when I say it would be fun to finish it off, because it's kind of easy to talk about most of that late 90s and through the 2000s up to the big four when that happens in 2010, because it really was in so many ways. It's the thing that enabled Anthrax to go on, because really, for all intents and purposes, it should have died in 2007 after we did the reunion tour with Joey and Danny 2005, 2006, and then we didn't move forward and make a record with that lineup.
Right.
We should have called it a day. But then Charlie sends me these fucking riffs, that eventually become worship music. Yeah. And I'm like, we still got something to say. So let's do a part 3.
We got to do a part 3. Right, yeah. Anyway, brother.
All right.
Yeah. That was awesome. You are, as always, a fucking incredible guest. We got a confirmation for a part 3 some point down the future. We got to give him a breather here, ladies and gentlemen. The mighty Scott Ian with Robb Flynn.